Welcome to the Sharpe Club. Thank you so much for giving me a chunk of your evening today. It is a little bit past 9 p.m. on the East Coast. And I know some of you are saying 9 p.m. Yes, because it's Monday. That's how it works on Monday. We do 9 p.m. on Monday because, I don't know, I don't want to do Friday because everyone's out there partying. Monday, you should be home and watching me, as you should be doing. So here we are live, 9 p.m. And I want to talk about something that a lot of people, I'm not sure if we talk about enough, to be forward with you. It is how we as Americans are dealing with the economy and our day-to-day life, what's happening all around us. And I brought together a super cool panel of people to talk about it. And when I say super cool, I do mean super cool. A bunch of people who we're going to talk about and give us their opinion. We're going to chat about this if we could. First off, if I may, I want to bring in entrepreneur and financial consultant, Chris Knight, AKA Bitcoin Chris. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. And also a co-founder of the Revolutionary Blackout Network, an activist and a host, the man himself, Compton Jay, also known as CJ. How are you, sir?
What's up? I'm doing well. How are you?
Excellent. And I do want to bring in, she's a radio and podcast host, the woman herself, Ericka Redic. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mr. Sharpe. How about yourself?
Ooh, Mr. Sharpe. I like that. Mr. Sharpe, even better. I like that. So if you want to follow these people, please do so. You can follow Chris at Chris Knight 407 on Twitter. Compton Made Me. You can follow CJ on Twitter. And Ericka Redic. You can follow her on Twitter. And for those of you listening to the podcast, Ericka's ERICKAREDIC. And Chris Knight, that's Knight like is in the KNIGHT.
Oh.
That's the Knight. Like, Excalibur and King Arthur, that kind of night. That's the one. So I want to ask this question to you guys. I know I had a woman who's in my world, a family member. She told me, she said, don't worry about the economy ever for America. And I said, why? She said, because Americans have to spend. They always spend. So don't worry, they'll just keep spending. The economy will always be okay because Americans don't stop spending. Is she right?
No, she is not.
Oh, okay, go ahead. No. I like that. Ladies first. Ericka, tell me.
Well, in addition to being a radio show and podcast host, I also own an accounting practice, and I work with dozens of small businesses around the country, Vermont, Texas, Michigan. Previously,
I didn't know there were any small businesses left in Vermont. I thought the government got rid of them.
There's one. Okay, there's one left, and he is barely holding on. Okay. But I will say we are seeing a shrinkage in the economy. The interest rates are definitely having a cooling effect on the economy, on businesses' willingness to spend, to grow, to hire. We've had massive layoffs in the tech industry. We're definitely in a recession, even though the Biden administration redefined what a recession is.
Said that that's not true.
Because they're liars.
Okay.
And so, we do have a very consumer heavy economy. And I'm curious
so hold on.
what
So
Chris
what
has
to
say, but
yeah, so you're saying you think we are in trouble. Go ahead, Chris. Make us feel better. Tell us that she's wrong.
I mean, Ericka, you're definitely spitting facts, but our country is based on debt. There's only so much that we're going to be able to do before they have to start turning on the money printer again. So, we will continue. I think they will maybe continue to tighten up with the interest rates, tight liquidity, raise interest rates a little bit more, just a little bit more, because I don't know how much longer the American people can, hold out. Like you said, a lot of people are struggling. So we'll see how much farther they can, make everybody struggle. But in my opinion, I think they're going to have to turn back on the money printer. And, without our
so you just think America's just going to keep printing money. You don't care. If things get
they
bad.
have to. They have
Just
to.
keep printing
They have
money.
no choice. They literally have no choice. Our country is built on debt.
Okay, all right. CJ, tell me what's going on here. Are we just gonna keep printing money?
That's the thing. The kind of the framing of this, because to me, these ebbs and flows of capitalism doesn't tell the tale of what's happening to people. People are in a constant, perpetual recession. Just because
okay, go ahead.
we are in a constant, perpetual recession, and it's called capitalism. So it's constantly exploiting. It's constantly cutting cost of labor. It's constantly making you work more. So even when they're reporting that the economy is doing good, the markers that they're using to judge the economy is for rich people. The markers are not for
the rich people are doing better. I think that part's true.
Right,
They are doing better.
right. So I mean, it's a whole different perspective that I have.
Let's go back then. Let's
can
go back.
Can I ask a question?
One second, Ericka. 1 second.
Okay.
One piece here. If we go back to say like the 50s and 60s, I think most Americans would disagree with you, CJ. They would say, no, we're doing fine. I got my house. I got my white picket fence, right? I think most Americans, obviously there were Americans who were hurting in the 50s also, but I would say I think most Americans at that point would have been like, no, we're good, right? The American way is doing the right thing. We're doing fine. But I think now most Americans would not say that. But we had capitalism both then and now. What do you think is the difference?
Well, again, I challenge the question, because the premise, when you say most Americans would say, I think you need to add the word white. Most white Americans would say that in 1950. Absolutely not. Black Americans would absolutely not say that. So I can't speak, necessarily to the white experience, but this is the evolution of capitalism. So because
but I
capitalism
do think, though, that back in the 50s, though, CJ, America was heavily white then, though. I mean, to reality, it was. So I still think I think the point of most Americans at that point, America was probably 80% white back then, maybe more. I think it was heavily white at the time, right? America didn't become browning until the 60s, right? Once they changed the immigration laws, I think at that point you found America browning much faster in the 60s. But prior to that, I think America was heavily white.
Well, but still the point remains that saying that in the 1950s, going back in the evolution or the chronological history of capitalism, all you're doing is you're grafting the downfall of capitalism. Capitalism is going to be on a steady decline for everybody. So you can compare, go back further and say the 1930s, with I Love Lucy, or I'm sorry, with pre I Love Lucy. So you're talking about the 1930s, that was better than the 1950s. You get what I'm saying? Okay. So all it is it's a steady evolution of more and more people not reaping the benefits of the top 1%. So it was a larger chunk of the middle class that's doing better. Then that all evaporated, because what capitalism has to do when it saturates the market, then you have to start cutting labor costs. Then you have to start. Okay,
so hold on. I got Ericka chomping at the bit. Let Ericka say go. She's chomping at the bit. Go ahead, Ericka.
Well,
go ahead.
I'm just curious what Compton Jay's definition of capitalism is, because the original form of business, of the economy, is capitalism. Capitalism is the free exchange of goods and services. And so the way that he's talking about capitalism is confusing to me. Now, I would agree that what we have now is not working for the average American. But what I'm seeing is not a problem of capitalism, it's the problem of an oligarchy. We have steadily seen banks taking over more and more control. We saw the largest wealth transfer upwards during the pandemic and because of the CARES Act and things like that. So I'm curious why the free exchange of goods and services, which is actually what a basic economy is, that's what we would have done during the 1800s, right? You want this thing and I have this thing that I'm willing to trade you for it. That's capitalism. So So while I agree that there are wealth disparities and there are problems, I'm curious what your definition of capitalism is and why you see that as the problem.
Well, this is a classic response to a critique of capitalism, is that, oh, what we have today is not actually capitalism. That's a classic response to a Marxist critique of capitalism. Capitalism, I define as exploitation, where you have to have a worker, you're paying them a wage that allows you a profit. So capitalism is based on exploitation. Is no way to have capitalism without exploitation, but we call it profit. Profit is actually stolen labor value from the worker. So
hold on, CJ. What if we had a situation where we were more like gig workers, right? So now there's no wage. There instead is an agreement of you provide a certain amount of value, you agree to a certain dollar amount for that value. So if we take away the wage and we instead, in this case, the person then, I guess would be a socialist idea, the person that would have control of their own labor completely. They would have control of the means, right? The means. Maybe if we had
they do not have the control. Gig work, you do not have control. There's an app that tells you what to do. You can't tell them, hey, I'm not making this delivery for this low cost. And then you have coercive sort of pressures on people who are doing gig work because the regular work isn't working and it's also not cutting it. So you have people in gig society. Can I finish my point? You have people in a gig society, in a gig economy who are choosing to do gig work because the other avenues aren't producing enough income to sustain their life.
So you're saying gig work is no better than wage work, is what you're saying?
Absolutely not. Not in a capitalist system. We're still in the same system.
Okay.
And I do gig work. I do gig work. I've done 4 gig work jobs. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're confusing capitalism with what we call inflation and what's going on with the money printer. So that's why Bitcoin is important. It's on this side, right? That's why I got Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. Okay, go ahead.
So this is where Bitcoin comes into play, right? Because you're saying that we're working harder and harder and harder, right? And we're getting less and less and less over time. And that's because of the money printer going berg. And that's because the Cantillon effect, right? Where all the people that are at the top of the pyramid scheme get all the money and then it trickles down to everybody else. So you're right. You're absolutely right. You're just confusing capitalism with inflation, right? And wage stuff. That's really what it is. It's really inflation is what you're speaking about. It's not really capitalism because as Ericka was saying, if I agree to pay you X amount for your services and we come to an agreement, that's a free market and that's capitalism. That's the generic. And I think everybody can agree that's what capitalism is. But what you're saying, CJ, in my opinion, I think you're incorrect. I think that it's pretty much based on inflation is what you're saying. You're saying slavery or profit or you're taking advantage of people, but nobody's making anybody work except for the fact that we live in a country that everybody has to work, right?
You are absolutely being forced to work in a capitalist system. How else can you survive? That is the coercive nature of capitalism. You like people can't even grow food, so you eliminate
who's not letting you grow food.
The fact that you have to work 60 hours a week in order to survive. The fact that
let me ask
hold on. The fact that people's housing is getting smaller and smaller without in the front and the backyard. So how are you going to grow food?
That's
you get what I'm saying? So it's so many. It's not, but it's different levels of this. Go ahead.
What if you remove the coercion part? In other words, what if you had, like Andrew Yang was talking about the idea of a UBI or something like that? What if you were to have a UBI to where now the average American, or something like UBI, whatever the case, now the average American is not afraid of starving to death, right? That's not a thing anymore. They get enough money to where they're not going to starve to death. And as long as they're okay living with at least one more person, right? Whether that's a spouse or a family member or adult child or whatever, right? If they live with someone else, they have no realistically possibility of losing their home. So if you took the coercion away, meaning you knew that you'd have a roof over your head and you knew you could eat, right? That's a guarantee. That part you got. Would it still then be wage slavery if I'm no longer coerced, right? Because I now could take a job that I felt I wanted versus one to survive. Would that change the equation?
Are we still living in a capitalist system in this hypothetical fantasy
It's
here?
the current system now.
The system
and the only
is
difference
the problem.
is you get the money.
The three of you are saying things that just kind of on the edges, smooth out capitalism, make it a little more palatable. The issue is capitalism. And to speak to the point about this is inflation versus capitalism.
Yeah.
Inflation just makes capitalism, living under the conditions of capitalism, worse. It doesn't take away. So if we didn't have any inflation, let's say inflation was very minimal.
Okay.
That doesn't take away that Amazon is still making billions while still paying their employees pennies compared to what they make. You get what I'm saying? It doesn't change the exploitation. So it's capitalism, not inflation. Inflation just makes it worse.
So I'm curious what so some of the things that you've said are just a little bit confusing to me, because number one, the average household size is considerably larger than it was in the 1950s and 60s on average. You're talking about people having to work 60 hours and not grow food. And so I'm assuming because your name is Compton Jay, I don't know if you're coming from Los Angeles. I definitely lived in LA for a while, and I can say it would probably be challenging to grow food there, but you can, make flower boxes and raised beds and put that stuff in a backyard or in a window. So all of these things I've seen people do. I've also seen people move out of the city so that they're in a place where there is more opportunity and it's less oppressive. But I'm curious, what is your solution if starting a business, if starting your own business and being in control of your money and when you work and who your customers are is not a solution, if being a gig worker is not a solution, if being a wage person is not a solution, what is your vision for
getting rid of capitalism? Getting rid of capitalism, transitioning
and replacing
to
it with what?
Transitioning to socialism on our way to communism. That's the solution I have.
Okay, but people still have to work and people still have to accomplish tasks and goals and do things in order to make the economy work, in order to produce goods and services that people can purchase. So are you saying like nothing, like there should be no cost to anything? And
I'm saying that we should eliminate exchange value and only have user value. Like we shouldn't be a company. For example, we see these videos all the time of Walmart throwing out lots of food because they pass the expiration. Getting rid of exchange value, meaning producing goods only to sell, not for yourself, creates all this extra waste. So the workers need to take control of the means and the means of production. So that means, so for example, we're all still working, and this is a hypothetical. There's a lot of details about socialism that we're not talking about. So this is a hypothetical, but hypothetically under socialism, we would have all the Amazon workers, the billions that they're making, they're all taking home millions of dollars because they're sharing in the total profits that they're bringing in. So it would be a completely different
hold on, let me see if I can grab this.
Here.
So would a step, in your view, be encouraging co-ops, like co-op companies or co-op buildings or co-op property? Would that be a step in the right direction?
Co-ops, they're all right. They're better than regular capitalism, I guess. But again, a co-op within the capitalist system is still going to have problems. And then just inserting co-ops into a failing system is not necessarily going to save the system. So you get what I'm saying? We're thinking of these patch patches to capitalism.
Absolutely, yes.
Instead of permanent fixes to capitalism.
CJ,
Like,
I do not want a violent revolution. I know you may be okay with that. I'm not okay with a violent revolution. So if we're moving
that, you have to talk to the oligarch about that. You have to talk to the oligarch about that, because if you prevent a peaceful revolution, then you are
talking about one.
Planning a violent
about
revolution, and we're heading there. And the pandemic sped that up. We're heading that way.
Pandemic did sped that up. That's true.
Well, and isn't it interesting that in our worldview, or I'll speak for myself, in my worldview, where I prefer a free market, free exchange of goods and services between people, it doesn't require a violent revolution, but seemingly your worldview and what you would like to see happen would require a violent revolution. And I think that choosing who you do business with is a far more kind, loving, and generous way of being, rather than trying to force people to work on your behalf, right? Because communism, socialism...
You're describing capitalism because you're forcing people to work on your behalf. That is literally the definition of capitalism.
I'm not. No, that is actually not the definition of capitalism.
I did give you an option here. I did give you an option, CJ. I gave you an option of removing the coercion. Right? Come on now. I was being good, and Marcos is bugging me.
Right,
Marcos
but removing the coercion and keeping the system does what? What does that do? That doesn't do anything. And it's not the worker that's leading us to a revolution. It's the owners that's preventing a peaceful revolution that she's talking about. But go ahead.
What Marcos says, you don't want a revolution because you and your family are comfortable. Guilty as charged, Marcos. That is correct. I do not want a revolution. That's accurate. But do I want reform to move towards something better? 100% yes. Am I open to moving to things like co-ops and such? I'm open to all those things. I am. And my point being, I don't want a violent revolution. You're correct, CJ, and so is Marcos. That 100%.
Yeah.
I do not want one. I would rather us move towards a better system that helps people in a better way.
This is the issue. This is the reason why people who are poor and in poverty always are grandfathered in back into the same sort of poor poverty state, because we have those in the professional managerial class like yourself, Larry, who aren't willing to go to the mat for the people who are at the very bottom. They want to live in their comfortable spaces and stay there, even though they can project that, yes, I want equality, but I ain't doing that shit to get there, sir. I want this. I want everybody, but I ain't doing that shit to get there. And it's not that I'm critiquing the professional managerial class, because you are doing well. So why would you want to do that? That is a logical sort of thing, but that doesn't.
I'm not even saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong.
It doesn't fix, and it doesn't change the fact. This is the reason why the same people, the same families that was poor 50 years ago, 100 years ago, it's just grandfathered in. We have to have a people that's willing to stand up and have a fight. Whether it's politically, whether it's not necessarily like a violent fight, but you're fighting, you're pressuring to get what you want. We don't have that. We don't have that sort of revolutionary spirit, especially in the Black community at all. We don't have that anymore.
The most peaceful and effective protest is going to be to purchase Bitcoin because you're opting out of the system, which is what you're complaining about. Now, I know a lot of people are not going to agree with capitalism or not going to agree with communism or socialism. I think we are heading more towards a socialistic society due to, UBI, because of the money printer and because everybody has to, it's not sustainable at what we're doing now. So I definitely see that happening in the future. But again, us being a communist country, not going to happen. There's way too many libertarians, Republicans, and even Democrats. Once they figure out like what that really is, they're not going to go for it. I
can guarantee you have no idea what communism is. I can guarantee the way you're talking, you have no idea what communism is.
Why don't you go to China or North Korea then?
Which is
Why don't you go to North Korea?
You just walk into his trap.
Hold on. You're right. You're so unaware. Exactly. And Larry knows that. You are so unaware of what communism is. And if the tell is, you bring up stuff like Cuba, Venezuela, China, which none of them are communists, sir. Not a single one. China they have more markets than we do, sir. More capitalist markets than we. So they're not communists. You are just looking at a name. They're not communists. There's never been a communist. There's never been a communist.
China's definitely a communist.
Ever.
It is
ever in existence.
It is
ever in existence. It's never been.
Okay, guys,
a
hold on one
communist
second. Hold on 1 second. Let me grab a couple of super chats while I'm at it. Let me grab some super chats. I did think it was going to go down this route, but I don't care. It's good. I like it. So yes, Roger says paychecks remained underwater regardless of inflation. I do.
That's
think
the point I made. That's capitalism.
But I think that's true for a certain class. To your point, CJ.
Yes.
I think when it comes to the what I would call the working poor or the working class, I think that's often true. But there is a larger chunk of American workers and owners where this is not actually true. And I'm assuming. I'm assuming. Oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I disagree, man. We got to stop acting like that's the only reason why. We have bad spending habits in our culture, in our community. Instead of buying and investing in real estate, and instead of buying and investing in Bitcoin, we got a closet full of Jordans. We're buying scratch-off tickets and gambling. We're selling grandpa's houses, right? We're supposed to keep that for generations to come. We don't have life insurance. It's about financial education. Stop blaming the system, because there's people that come here from other countries and take advantage of the same opportunities that we have. But you want to sit here and complain and say that it's the system. It's not the system. It's because we're not educated, and you don't know about Bitcoin. You don't know how credit works. You don't know how all these things work in conjunction to make your life and your family members and your future generations' lives better. You're blaming the system. Well, the system's already here. It's going to be here. There's nothing that you can do or I can do to change it unless we opt out with Bitcoin or we learn the game and play the game how it's supposed to be played.
That's right.
Learn the
rules of the game and play the game.
That is such a slave mentality that you have.
Slave mentality.
Slave mentality?
Yes.
No, that's how you come up out of poverty.
A lot of black people, especially black capitalists, they have slave mentalities. It's like, you ain't working hard. You ain't doing this. You ain't doing
I didn't say they weren't working hard.
It's the person. That's what you just said. So I
said they're spending their money.
You just said that.
Yeah.
Whatever spending habits, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Hold on.
It's like if I don't buy Jordans. So if I don't buy these Jordans, which one, I agree with you as far as spending money ridiculously. But that's not the point of what I'm saying. The point of what I'm saying is you can say we're spending money ridiculously, but to say if we're going to save that small amount of money, and understand, Jordans, you can act like that shit is expensive. That is not expensive in the world of capitalism. So spending a couple of $100s on Jordans or saving a couple of $100s on Jordans, and let's say you buy Jordans 3 times a year, $600. I'm sorry, but $600 don't pay half my rent, sir. $600 don't pay half my rent.
The only thing I want to say, CJ, to be fair, he didn't say work harder. What he said was work smarter is what he actually said. He didn't say harder.
Smarter is leaving capitalism. Smarter is leaving capitalism.
Smarter is learning the rules of the game and playing them. So you've made a lot of statements that are just untrue in the average American's life and opportunity. The United States has the largest opportunity for upward mobility economically than any other country on the planet. I grew up poor. My husband did not grow up with a bunch of money. But nowadays, in 2023, there is the internet, there are libraries, there is access to the information. And so if you prioritize education, if you prioritize learning things and bringing yourself up out of the circumstances that you're in, you can get out of them. I grew up on food stamps and in public housing, and I don't live there anymore. And so this this claim that everyone is grandfathered into their circumstances, frankly, is a lie from the pit of hell. And I don't know why you would put that on yourself, your community, or the American people. We can do better. Everyone can do better. Everyone can educate themselves. Everyone has an opportunity. Everyone has a specific skill, a purpose, some way that they can take advantage and make different choices. And you're damn right that if you're broke and you're spending $600 on Jays instead of investing or starting a business or doing any one of 1,000 things that you could do to turn that $600 into more $600, my kids' friends, okay, 12-year-old, 13-year-old little girls could bought a freaking lawnmower and are mowing lawns in their neighborhoods and then turning that money back into more money. So I reject your premise, and I reject this notion that Americans are incapable and lack agency over their lives.
Gotcha. I didn't say any of that. Gotcha. No, I said largest upward mobility. The reason the United States has the highest ceiling, let's call it that, the highest ceiling as far as economics, is because of imperialism, because of U.S.-backed coups in other countries. Is this serious? Is this a fucking serious discussion, Larry? Are these
I
two
thought
other
it was.
guests
You're trying to tell me it's not. I thought it was.
Unprepared about what the fuck is going on in the society? Is this serious?
Okay, hold
It seems
on.
like unserious to me.
Let me do
This
some
seems
admin.
very unserious to me.
Okay, let me do some admin real fast. I got some super chats I got to do. I'm still a capitalist, CJ. I still got to do some super chats. So I got to do some super chats still. Let me do my super chats. All right, so
this is a waste of my fucking time, Larry. This is a waste of my fucking time.
Oh, come on. You're going to leave me now? You're going to do that to me?
I'm not going to leave you, but this is absolutely the clown you got, this female clown you got. I mean, I'm almost ready to leave because of her.
Okay, that's not fair. Don't do that.
I don't care what's fair or not.
No one insulted you. Come on
I don't care what's fair or not. I do not.
Hey, man, if all you can do is swear and insult me, you can't actually argue any of my points.
I've already argued your points, and which is stupid.
CJ, don't insult.
You were responding to what I said.
Nobody insulted you.
Oh,
yeah, bro, stop being emotional, bro. That's a problem.
Don't insult. You can be
that
emotional.
Is my problem. I am emotional about the shit that's going on because
you can be emotional.
You can be
so
passionate.
I am going to be emotional. That's another slave mentality shit. That shit.
No, you can be passionate if you let me finish my sentence.
So what's the difference in what I'm doing in passion? What's the difference in what I'm doing in passion, sir?
Is not, you're not thinking logically.
What is the difference?
You're not thinking logically.
I'm speaking clearly. I'm making points. I'm talking in grammatically. You understand what I'm saying. So how do you define passion over emotion?
I'm going to tell you.
And why isn't passion emotion?
I'm going to tell you. Will you let me tell you?
Why don't you unfollow me?
I'm trying to tell you, but you won't stop talking.
Dumbass.
I am going to unfollow you.
Thank you.
Will you stop? I'm trying to tell you, but you won't stop talking. I'm trying to tell you. I'm going to tell you. One is not let me do my damn super chats. That's number one. Number two, you don't have to insult. You can say someone's wrong or that you are right. No problem with that. You didn't have to insult. That was not required. So those are my two answers to your question. One, let me do my super chats. And two, you don't have to insult. I hope I've at least answered your questions. Let me do my super chats now. Roger says, the solution is replace corporations with worker co-ops. He also says, in order for work co-ops to be transformative, work co-ops must own the supply chains as well, not just be an island in a sea of corporations. Thank you for the $7, Roger, by the way. I appreciate that. And this was my point. My point here was, I happen to agree with everybody here when they say the system is the system. Agreed. I am not for, guilty as charged, Marcos, guilty as charged, CJ, I am not for a violent revolution. Am I for reform? I am, 100%. And what I'm trying to talk about today is, what can we do to move towards a better system? If that system is socialism or communism, if it is, I don't think it would be that. I think it'd be some kind of combination of the systems, what I believe it will be. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something else I don't know about. I'm happy to be wrong. But I do want to move towards a fairer, better system for everybody. I haven't forgotten where I came from. I came from the South Bronx. I haven't forgotten that. To be forward, and Mark was right. I don't want to go back. I'm happy where I am now, and I'm happy part of the managerial class. I am. I'm happy to be there, but doesn't mean I forgot where I came from. It does not mean that. Was that at least clear, CJ, and what I'm saying, at least whether you agree or not? Did that at least make sense what I was thinking?
I didn't know that you were referring to me because I didn't feel like anything what you said had anything to do with me. So I thought you were just generally talking.
Okay.
Let me tell you this. The reason, because I quite frankly did not expect to walk into this like this. Thought this was going to be a regular conversation. I didn't know this was going to be this way. One, why are we having a conversation about what CJ says? Why aren't you just speaking your own fucking piece? This whole conversation is based on what I said. Now we want to interrogate CJ. You came here to talk your point irregardless of what I say. I wasn't commenting initially on any one of you, what you had to say. I just gave my particular point. Then when you have to come after me, then I take it back to what I do. I take it back to what I do.
Everybody has a right to their opinion, and then we have a right to tell you how stupid your opinion is, bro. I mean, it is
right. And I told you how stupid your slave-minded opinion is, and hers too.
Yeah,
so what's the difference?
That's why you don't got no Bitcoin, bro. That's why you don't got no Bitcoin, bro. That's why you don't have no Bitcoin.
Okay,
you're right.
If we have to swear and be insulting to make our points,
gotcha.
It is what it is. What I was trying to get across.
Clown shit.
What I was trying. It's not clown stuff, CJ. It's not.
It's clown shit to me.
It's what people think, and not everybody thinks the same way everybody else thinks.
You are right. You are right.
They just don't. It's okay.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
It's okay to agree to disagree, bro. There's no need to get emotional.
Right. Right.
It's
That's what it is. That's what it is. Gotcha.
That's all I'm saying.
I would, to your point, Larry, I would love to offer for consideration. I think most Americans, especially if they're paying any kind of attention, agree that the way things are currently is not working. So I am with
guaranteed. Chris
when it comes to Bitcoin and decentralized currency. The United States government, the Fed, the federal government, and the Federal Reserve. First of all, # abolish the Fed. Let's start there. But short of that, let's talk about the fact that BlackRock and Vanguard and who am I forgetting? Own or control some, hundreds of billions of dollars in our economy, that Apple, they essentially are a monopoly. They control a monopoly of our businesses. Apple is a monopoly, and the federal government is absolutely unwilling to use its anti-monopolistic powers to break up some of these massive corporations that are making the decisions from the top down. You've got the ESG scores, which are making it so unless you do what we tell you to do, you can't get money for an investment. Okay. That's not okay. 3 companies making that decision. When the president of or CEO of BlackRock is really who's in charge of the United States economy, rather than the legislature or the executive branch or whatever, there's clear problems that are fixable if the legislature actually had any kind of backbone.
Well, there's 3 things you brought up here, right? One of them is, I feel like, one, that the people don't have any control over this economy at all, or over the government, right? The individual people do not. Our vote virtually doesn't matter. I mean, it does kind of, but nowhere near what it's supposed to, right? A little bit it does. Like, it does make them a little afraid.
Only because people don't actually show up to the polls, but
that too also, yes, absolutely. So and the party systems are broken, so that's true, right? So that
campaign finance reform is necessary, absolutely. Like, there's a lot wrong.
Yes, but the second piece I want to bring up here is when the government won't do the one thing it's supposed to do, which is protect our rights, right? Mm-hmm. And then break up monopolies, right? Monopolies aren't going to be a good thing. Of course they aren't. That's also, you brought that up also. But the last piece I want to bring up is you brought up the Bitcoin piece. And since I have Chris here, why do you think Bitcoin is the answer? What everyone thinks when they think about Bitcoin, not everyone, but the uneducated, I'll say that, the people uneducated in cryptocurrencies, and I don't mean uneducated in general. I mean specifically in the big people who are uneducated when it comes to cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. I think they see all of them as scam investments. I think that's how they see it. They go, this is just some kind of investment. They don't see this as anything else. Why is it? Why do you think it's so special? And why Bitcoin versus any of the other 4,000 coins that are out there?
Yeah, well, as Ericka alluded to earlier, it's decentralized. It's the only coin that's actually decentralized, so nobody can control it. So even though BlackRock is interested in buying it, even though Michael Saylor is buying it, even though, El Salvador, the country, is buying it, they don't control it no matter how much they buy. So it's decentralized. Nobody controls it. And the reason why it's important is because it's freedom money, right? It can't be created. You can't print it out of thin air. There's only ever going to be 21 million. I'm sure there's probably 20% that's probably lost and gone forever. So it makes it a more scarce asset. Scarcity, we've never seen a more scarce asset in our entire lifetime. So with that being said, the value of it's always going to continue to go up. It's peer-to-peer. It's a peer-to-peer transaction, right? So we don't got to ask permission. There's no middleman. There's no fees, right? It's a revolution in money that we need. And when you fix the money, you fix a lot of these problems that CJ is talking about, right? And, I think if our community, not only just our community, just everyone, right, especially in America, I think Americans are going to actually get it last because we're so spoiled that we have the world reserve currency, even though we're losing so much value in it.
Yes.
I think we're going to be the last to adopt Bitcoin. That's why it's so popular in Africa and, a lot of countries that aren't privileged because they understand the value because they need it, right? They actually need it. Meanwhile,
can I ask you a question about Bitcoin? What is Bitcoin? Because I don't know anything about what Bitcoin is thinking about. What's happening to the petrodollar? What's happening with BRICS? What does Bitcoin think of that?
I mean, to be honest with you,
what does Bitcoin say about that? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. To be honest with you, BRICS is opting out of the U.S. dollar because of what I'm telling you now. It's because because of the inflation and because they have such a control over everything by printing dollars and, outsourcing that work for money that's printed out of thin air. So BRICS and Russia and China, they're going to, they're probably going to operate in gold or come up with their own currency. But at the end of the day, all roads lead to Bitcoin because even at that point, they have to trust somebody with that currency, right? And they have to trust and verify how much gold that Venezuela has or, China has and all that good stuff versus a protocol that's worldwide that can never be changed. They're going to eventually, in my opinion, they're going to be on the Bitcoin standard. And I think the whole world will be on the Bitcoin standard sooner than later. But, they can print more money and kick the can down the road. We can still be on the
hold on. Doesn't if we have something that's peer-to-peer in Bitcoin, doesn't it make it easier for us to literally do what Roger was talking about? To actually have an answer to where now Bitcoin, we could create our own individual communities. We can create our own individual. We can create our own Bitcoin local bank, right? We could create the things. That's what that's the part that I love about Bitcoin.
Absolutely. There's no discrimination. There's no racism. There's no permission. All you have to do is download a wallet on your phone. And if I have something that you like or you have something that I like, I can just pay you directly. And that's it. There's Lightning Network that makes transactions happen instantly and it's virtually free. So you don't even have to pay fees. And it's definitely changing the world. It's just we're not.
So hold on. Here's my worry. What you just said means no big bank is getting their big cuts.
That's right.
That tells me they're not going to be happy and they're going to have something to say about this.
Well, guess what?
Because they're going to be, wait a minute, I'm a big bank. Guess what? I don't get my cut. We got to do something about this.
What they're doing is they're buying Bitcoin because they already know what's going on. I got my mom signed up for it's a Unity Federal Credit Union. They teamed up with NYDIG, and they already have access a portal in the back when you log into the websites of the bank, you can buy Bitcoin in the bank portal. So Bank of America
making me feel good when I hear credit unions. I like credit unions a lot. Yeah. I prefer them over banks. I think this goes to what Roger was talking about earlier. It's the idea of co-op banking. It allows local communities to have more control over their own money.
That's right.
And now if we have Bitcoin, okay, I think I'm getting it.
The banks are stupid. They know what's coming. They're buying up Bitcoin now. They'll say all the stuff on the news, right? And that's what I don't like about, everybody in America. They'll listen to the news when the news has been known to lie to us for years, right? For decades, right? They'll listen to the banks, and the banks defraud us with overdraft fees and opening up bank accounts without your permission, and all the stuff that they do, right? So I don't know why we even trust the banking system, but we have to, right? Because it's the cartels, and that's how we run our system. But the difference between Bitcoin and the other 20,000, however other coins are, those are pretty much, you can make money on those. They're pretty much Ponzi schemes. Those are Ponzi schemes because somebody created them. You can buy it and somebody can dump it on you, or you can make money, you're dumping on somebody else. Bitcoin is not controlled by anybody. It is volatile. The price that you pay for an asset that's going to go up in time is volatility. Life is volatile. We have ups and downs in life. Money is going to have its ups and downs.
Somebody once told me, they said, if your coin has a CEO, it's a scam.
That's right.
Is that true?
That's right.
Why is that? That's what I heard.
If it has, like, there are coins that are based on gold, or they're based on some other country's currency value or whatever. They have some kind of thing that they're tied to. Chris, you're going to be way smarter at this conversation than I am, but the idea is that if it is tied to anything other than what the people decide it's valued at, then it's a problem. Is that about
and why
right?
is that? Yes, and the reason is because you have to trust people, right? And as human natures, people lie, people steal, people, and if you have to trust people, I believe in God, right? So if you believe in God, you'll be good. But if you believe in people, it says in the Bible, you always be let down, because people we're perfect. We're not perfect, right? We're always gonna steal. There's always somebody that's going to steal, right? There's always somebody that's going to lie. There's always somebody that's going to cheat. We just got to be realistic about it. CJ, I want to give you $10 for your Bitcoin. If you download, a wallet, I'll send you $10 for your Bitcoin, bro. I'll be more than happy to teach you. But, not trying to, throw shade or hate on you or anything like that. I just think that, education is the key. And, I don't like telling our future children or just anybody in America in general that they can't do something because, or their color or whatever, because of the system. The system is flawed. I agree with you 100%, which is why I say opt out. But I think education is the overall key. If we learn how credit works, right, and we learn how to use the bank.
Let me bring up this comment here. I think this is important. This kind of goes with what he was talking about earlier. Dennis says, when a Venezuelan boulevard collapsed, people began trading in Bitcoin. Been doing it for years there. Is this actually true? Do you happen to know if it's true, Chris?
Oh yeah, it's absolutely true.
So then this then helps to stop for the imperialism that CJ talked about, right? If they have their own currencies and they can trade as they see fit, then that would stop the petrodollar from coming in and being an issue. So I think this would help even with that. Am I right or am I wrong here?
No, you're absolutely right. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about what's going on in Libya. I don't know if you guys heard about it. Okay, so no, same thing, hyperinflation, right? Their dollar's going down like crazy. So, Bitcoin is skyrocketing because that's the only thing they can access and transact with. In Africa, Nigeria is the most Bitcoin adoption on, planet Earth, because their government is so corrupt. They can't operate in their currency because it's trash, first and foremost. And second of all, they have so much control and they're trying to oppress those people. But guess what? Now they can operate and transact with Bitcoin. So those are just two. Venezuela, they've been suffering hyperinflation for years. That's not anything new.
Okay.
The only way they can live.
Are you seeing Bitcoin in business or no? I feel like it has not gone into business that much yet. I feel like in America, most people see it as an investment, not as a currency. Am I off on this?
It really is both, and it sort of depends on what business you're in. So and the kind of person that you are. So, like, for example, credit card companies are trying to make de facto gun registries, as an example. So if you're a big 2A advocate like I am, a lot of people are using Bitcoin to buy and sell guns when they have the opportunity, because credit cards are now implementing new codes for various things like arm braces or things like that. Again, thereby creating a de facto gun registry. And so you have things like that. There are people who are maybe bought Bitcoin at one point and it has greatly appreciated in value. So now they're using it to buy a house or a car. There are car dealerships in Texas that will take Bitcoin.
Wow.
I have a bunch of clients that have it for an investment. They've bought it as an investment, are holding it. But now I'm seeing a lot more people use it to actually buy and sell goods and services.
Wow, that is amazing.
Absolutely.
CJ, you said you don't really know that much about Bitcoin. Are people not talking about Bitcoin in your world?
It's not that I don't necessarily know about Bitcoin. Is that these are just ways to get around replacing capitalism.
I agree.
My
I think you're right.
So this is just I'm just not that interested in anything outside of trying to take out capitalism. Like these workarounds will never help everybody, and that's my interest, is to help everybody. Being from Compton, that's kind of like ingrained in me. I've seen the lowest of the low. You get what I'm saying? So I'm good. I'm good.
What about the idea of using something like Bitcoin to get around the oligarchy, to build more of a community, right? To build that local community. How about something like that? Would that be valuable?
That would be valuable. Let's say we're in the middle of a revolution and they have access to turn off all accounts.
Yes.
Then Bitcoin would come into play.
Yes.
For a revolution. Yes.
See,
like I said, I know more about Bitcoin than I'm saying, but I would use Bitcoin in a revolution as part of a revolution stance.
I don't think Chris or I are mad at you about that. I think we're on board.
Yeah.
I think we're on board. Yeah. Yes. I think we're completely on board. And my issue is if we're able to build more communities and to have less dependence upon a federal government, then I think the federal government has to react in a certain way and literally give us more power. They kind of have to at one point, because how they control us is through either physical guns and or money. One of those, that's how they control us, right? We take the money away and we have a bunch of guns, which I'm okay with also. Those two things, then we do allow our local communities to be stronger. We do allow people to be who they want to be when they want to be it. I think that to me seems like what I would think would be a better future, because then more people are doing what they want, the way they want to do it, living their communities the way they want to live their communities. I think that's much stronger. That's just my view. Maybe I'm off with that one.
Yeah, let me just say that I want to help everybody too, right? But we have to be realistic, right? We gotta be realistic. There are people that, I've been to LA several times, I've been to Skid Row several times. I want to help as many people as I can, but you have to understand that there are some people that don't want to help themselves. So we have to be realistic in understanding that some people don't want help. So we're not going to be able to help everybody. We can provide the opportunity, the education, the tools.
Yeah.
But, we can't help everybody. In the Bible, it also says the poor will be among you always, right? So, there's always going to be poor people, whether we want to and can help it or not, right? Because that's how some people are wired. Some people want to do drugs, bro. Some people want to be on the street. And I've tried to help people out myself, so I know this for a fact. Like, some people just want to be on drugs, and some people just want to. And I know that fentanyl is addictive, and I know heroin's addictive, and all that good stuff. And there's hope for those.
Let me give you some pushback on that one, Chris, if I could. And I'm only going to say this because I've had people in my family who've been addicts. My mother was an addict. My mother was.
No. I'm not saying that anybody can't get free.
No. That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, people like my mother and others will often tell you that they want to be on the street, or will tell you that they want to do drugs, or they'll say something like that. But in reality, they don't. In reality, they feel like it's the only answer, or the answer that's them, or even the drugs are telling them, right? What I would always say to people, when you want to help somebody who's an addict, you can't try to help them when they're jonesing for the drug, right? You got to help them when they're not jonesing. Then they'll at least hear you. Then at least there's a chance they will talk to you and say something honest. But when someone's jonesing for the drug, they will say whatever. They don't care. They will, and often, sadly, do whatever because they want their drug. So I get what you're saying. Are there some people that we can't help? Yeah, maybe at a given point. I think that's right. At any given point in time, there'll be some people that we can't help at a given point. But absolutely. I do believe, and maybe I'm naive here. I'm happy to be naive. I think everybody can be helped. But you're right. At a given time, maybe someone can't be helped, right? But I think everyone can be helped.
I absolutely disagree.
Tell me, Ericka.
I celebrated 14 years sober in March this year, and I can tell you right now, thank you very much. Thank you. I can tell you that not everyone is going to get it. Not everyone wants to get it. There is a particular mindset. I'm really, honestly, I've been asked this for literally 14 years now. People will say to me, Ericka, how were you able to get sober, but my dad isn't? How were you able to get sober, but my aunt isn't, or my daughter? What was it for you? What happened? And I can't answer that question. I sincerely can't. I don't know the difference.
Can I give it a shot? My mother became sober, and she was sober till the day she died.
Yeah.
And what was different between her and many of her friends who never became sober, and some of them who actually passed away, or are still literally in prison now, right? The difference was she had a support structure. That's what she had. I didn't know whether it was the first "I love you" that I told her or the 400th that I told her, but at one point she had a support structure, and when she came out, literally, I took the savings that I had, and I got her a car, and I got an apartment, and I got her back up and running, and I was physically there for her when she was in trouble.
I think it's.
And when people were in trouble, she had a support structure. Now, don't get me wrong. She also came out of prison, which was a night and day transformation for her, right? When she got out, she was like, holy shit, I don't want to go back in, right? So there was also a significant emotional event in her life. She had that significant emotional event and a support structure. And I would say that for most, not all, but most people, if you give them a significant emotional event in their life and then a support structure, I think most can get sober. I think most actually want to.
The people that I've seen die, commit suicide, languish on the street, many of them come from good homes with good parents that have money, that have support. I have seen people with none of that get and stay sober and go on to start things like
maybe I'm wrong here.
Jails to Jobs and other organizations that I've seen. So it certainly doesn't hurt, but the number of the hundreds and thousands of people that I have met over the last 14 years, there is no rhyme or reason for, in my experience, for the ones that get and stay sober versus the ones that don't. I have a felony conviction on my record that I will never get rid of. I went to prison. Those were all things that had to be overcome. And I'm still dealing with the ramifications of that stuff.
My mother did to the day she died. She was a convicted felon. She dealt with it until the day she died.
And so I think that there is something in the human spirit, I think, that if it can connect to a power greater than itself in any moment of, what is the right word to use? Any salient moment. I think the one thing that you said that was the most important was if you are jonesing or if you are getting, if you're sobering up or whatever, if there is any moment in your mind that you go, I am worth more than this and my life can be more than this, and I'm willing to lean on a creator, on a power greater than myself. I don't know what it is. If you can just get any sort of inclination that this is not how it has to be, that's how you overcome poverty. That's how you overcome addiction. That's how you overcome many of the problems that we have in this society. When I insist on seeing myself as a victim or a person who has no agency over my life and my choices, and that I'm just the victim of my circumstances, like if your mindset is, I have no power or decision making over my life, I mean, you're pretty much screwed. And that's whether it's money, drugs, or any other problem that you're ever going to face in your life.
All right. Let me if I could
let me chime in about the homeless people. There's nobody homeless that wants to be homeless. I do work on Skid Row in Los Angeles every single month. I'm down there. That's a fallacy. It's just made up. It's what people tell themselves in order to feel adequate about not helping people. And I don't mean Chris. I mean, it's because we hear this all the time. Like one time, I have it on video. One time we were down there working. I'm videotaping Rome, getting the clothes out. Somebody walks by, conversation. Oh yeah, these people want to be down here. And then we saw what the exchange was with Rome after that. So it's a way of making yourself feel good about not helping people. Because if you think about it, if you're not,
every time
you're not helping somebody, you feel bad. Go ahead.
Every time I see your thing, I do donate. So I don't know if you see me, I do donate. Every time I see it pop up on social media, I do donate. So I do throw my piece in.
Yeah, for sure.
I do throw my piece in.
Appreciate that, because the people down on Skid Row appreciate the clothes, they appreciate the food, the blankets that we bring down there by your donation. So appreciate
I do. So anyone else who cares, I donate. So if you can donate, please feel free. I also, whenever I see it come by, you sometimes put it on social media. When I see it, I pop it up, and I do throw some money in there every time.
And Larry, this kind of answers generally what you said. What are people doing in inflation? And that's what RBN is doing.
Okay.
We're building a library in Detroit from donations. It's almost done. That's going to be a community library. And in KC, at our KC chapter, they're going to bunch of diaper giveaways, and they're going to be teaching free self-defense. Because our guy in LA is an MMA fighter. And then in Boston, they're going to be helping with housing, student loans, or anything surrounding like schooling in college. And then in Orlando chapter with Jay, he's disabled. So he's going to be helping people fill out who don't know how to fill out disability forms. So a lot of virtual sort of communication. And then in LA, of course, it's Skid Row and the project. So I'm down in the projects helping, that's how we're surviving this. And that's how the way forward is mutual aid, community support.
100%.
And that's the way forward.
Agreed.
That's the way forward.
100%.
That is something we can agree on.
100%. Community is so much better than government. Community is so much better than outsiders. Community is always, and look, community is not perfect. Community screws up too. Everybody screws up. No one's perfect, but no question, community is going to give a better outcome than anything else.
Well, 100%. And I love what P. Grace said in your comments section. If you could cure schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, somehow you would see homelessness go way down. And that is so true. There are so many people on the street who have some kind of a mental disorder that ends up leading them down a path that is not good. They just, there are common threads that if we were able to solve some of these problems, like miraculously, it would be a lot better. It would be 100%. Much less worse.
So bad. Let me do a little bit, if I could, a little bit of admin. Guys, if you like what you're seeing, please click the like button. If you think that what we're saying makes sense, or if you hate it, I don't care. Click like button anyway. Click the like button. It does matter. If you're watching on Twitter, please retweet this right now. It does matter 100%. I have to get past Al Gore. Algorithm. I have to get past the algorithms. So please help me out. Hit that like button. Please retweet this. It does matter. It's important. You want to super chat me, as Roger has done. I'll cover his. He has a couple more. You can also super chat me if you want to. If you want to support the show directly, you can. Patreon.com/Sharpeway. Throw me $10 goes a long way. I can spend less time being a professional management consultant than doing this. That's awesome. If you're going to follow the people here, please follow them. I put their websites and their link trees all in the description on YouTube and on Facebook. If you just want to follow them on Twitter, you can. Chris Knight 407, Compton Made Me, and Ericka Redic. Please follow them. Give them some. They've been giving us love. Give them some love in return. Follow them. It's a good idea. It makes everything better. Let me quickly, if I could, grab a couple more super chats. And this is from Roger. And he brings up a couple things that I think are really interesting. He says, Venezuela got that because of U.S. sanctions. And then he brings up Libya and says, Libya was fine to Obama. Hillary used NATO to stage a coup against Gaddafi, who was going to form a continental coin based upon his gold deposits. Not just that. One of the reasons why there is a coming war in West Africa is because of our interference in Libya and other areas. So, CJ, you are correct 100%. We are definitely being imperialist. And as a libertarian, I wish we'd stop all of that. I wish we'd leave people alone, let them grow their way. And I'm gonna give Chris some credit here. I think if they had gone Bitcoin, the U.S. probably wouldn't have noticed. And I mean that. If Gaddafi didn't decide to go African coin, he was trying to make an African coin, right? If he didn't go African coin and he instead went Bitcoin, I don't think the Obama-Hillary people would have noticed and made him unalive, right? And I think they would have left him alone, not realizing what he was doing. I think that actually could have been an answer for him. Am I off on this one?
No, I think you're 100%. When did he pass away? I'm not even 100% sure the year.
Is it
13? It was a while ago. Yeah, it was a while ago.
I think about 10 years. I think it's 2013, 2012. It's in that area.
A long time ago.
When Obama was in office, yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah, it was. And now everything has fallen apart in West Africa because of this, right? That's why we're fighting. That's why, if you remember, a couple years back, we had like 5 Americans die in Mali. And everyone's like, what the hell were 5 Marines dead in Mali for? Because there's 1,000 Marines in Mali right now. That's the reason. Nobody knows that, right? There's 1,000 Marines in Mali, another 5 are, and by the way, the Wagner group, I should say, out of Russia, they're all over West Africa too. They're throwing the French out. The French were in West Africa. Everybody's in West Africa.
Yeah, the French. I can't stand France, bro. France can burn, bro. France can burn. Let them burn.
I just don't want people doing. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ericka. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I just think the reality is that Western nations and Middle Eastern nations, including China and Russia, have continued to rob the continent of Africa of their natural resources.
100%.
And continue to encourage slave labor, warlords and all of the things. And when you look back at the 90s and you see the Rwandan genocide, when the nations, United Nations and NATO turned their back on the murder of 800,000 Africans in the course of 100 days, I mean, it is just evident to me that there are still problems. We are... in theory, okay, we're not colonizing anymore, right? We're not going and taking over land anymore, but we are absolutely destroying economies and taking advantage of places that are not as economically advanced as we are. And 100%. We're always in bed with the worst people. We arm the worst people and say that they're our allies, and then they turn around and fight us with our own weapons. And so,
yes. Well, I got some conspiracy theory stuff on this one. You ready for this?
I'd love to hear it.
Okay, I'm not a conspiracy guy. If you watch me, I'm not a conspiracy, but I'm a little bit on this one. I think we left all those weapons in Afghanistan on purpose. I think it was all left on purpose. Because Afghanistan is bordering both Russia and Iran. And recently, Afghanistan had an incursion into Iran just recently using our weapons. I think that was all done on purpose. That we left all those billions of dollars of weapons in Afghanistan on purpose because they're right adjacent to 2 of our enemies. That's what I think.
Fascinating.
Maybe I'm crazy. I'm not usually a conspiracy guy. But in this case, I think that's true.
I'm just about willing to... Oh, go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. I was just saying, conspiracy theories have been right. So
yeah,
you've been
it's
right.
true.
You've been pretty right and pretty spot on. It's because we can see through the BS, right? And I want to say that woke. They took the word woke, which is like the right wing, right? The right wing took woke and made it like what it used to mean was you are awake to the system and what they're right. That's what it used to mean, but now it means you're gay, you're transgender, you're trying to, and they just took the word. So, once you understand what they're doing, like you said, that's when you say these things and then they call you a conspiracy theorist.
When you find out that the water is in fact turning the frogs gay, okay? I'm just saying, there's only times Mr. Alex Jones can be right before you go, well, You know, everybody thought it was crazy that, oh, they're controlling the weather. And then we have freaking Olympics in China and they're making it snow. You know, like there's only so many times that you can be called a crazy person and then whatever it is you said turns out to be right. Like the lab leak theory, you were a conspiracy theorist and now it turns out to be right. I don't know if you're allowed to say that on YouTube anymore, but you know, you may have to bleep this out later.
Canceled. Here's what I say: they don't get canceled. The lab leak theory is not proven yet. It is now an acceptable theory, but it's not proven yet. See, now I'm okay.
Okay, got it.
Now I'm good. Otherwise,
the vaccines were the most safe and effective thing that have ever existed in the history of all time.
All I said was, I never said that.
I'm saying it for the YouTube listening algorithm.
There we go. Yes, absolutely. But
the concept of conspiracy theory was actually invented by the CIA years ago, decades ago. So that just the concept of the word, it's supposed to give a connotation off, and they just go, that's a conspiracy theory, and it literally just means anything that the state is not saying. If you get anything against the state, so we saw that throughout the pandemic. But to me, when I hear conspiracy theory, that's just me saying, I hear it and I translate it to that's closer to the truth than what the state is telling me, and that's
correct.
Correct. I love that. I love that. So conspiracy
theory is not always 100%, but it's closer to the truth than what the state is telling me.
Absolutely.
I think that's a safe bet, actually.
That's where we've gone. That's where it is.
My wife stuck her head. My wife heard that and stuck her head in and had to say something when I said that. Get out of here.
I like it.
Go ahead, Larry.
Marco says schizophrenia and bipolar disorder doesn't cause homelessness, and I want to touch that. I think Marcos is correct. That's not the cause of homelessness. It just makes it. Yes, it makes it so much harder for someone to get help. Right? It just makes it so much harder when someone has the problem. And this goes back to another issue that I think a lot of people would say is a conspiracy, but I don't think it is anymore at all. We shut down most of our facilities that would help people, and instead relied on drugs. Right? Yes. So now our answer is, don't go get help. Here's a drug instead. And that started in the 80s and has just been just bigger and bigger. Now, you know, to get actual help, I mean, that's a struggle. Ask the VA, the veterans, right? I'm a veteran. The VA is a disaster in this. Mm-hmm. All the VA ever does is, here's more drugs, here's more drugs.
Yep.
And then I'm on the phone with my brothers trying to tell them, don't take the gun out of your mouth, right? I got to do that because all they do is keep putting them on drugs all the time. And I think that, I mean, I use the veterans as a personal story, but it's not just veterans. It's people all over the place, right? And I'm going to go to the lockdowns too. And I'm bothered by the lockdowns for many reasons, because the government won't even accept responsibility for their damage they've created with the lockdowns. If you had a drug problem and you didn't have a mental problem, after 2 years of isolation, now you got both. If you had a mental problem, you didn't have a drug problem, after 2 years of isolation, now you got both. They made everything worse by isolating the people who needed the help the most.
100%.
I think the overdoses were 150,000 in 2021, or I think it was 150 to 200,000 in 2021. So a lot of people overdosed. You know, it was a huge spike. So, you know, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Larry.
Huge spike in overdoses and suicides. Actually, Vermont had the highest increase per capita of suicides and overdoses in the country. So it affected my state incredibly hard.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is crazy is the crime rate shot up too.
Yes.
Right? Because now you have people who are desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. That's just human nature, right? So now you've made everything worse. Then people all the time go, and we just had this crime and everything just exploded. What time? Around 2020, 2021. What happened in 2020 and 2021? What happened then? It's a mystery. I don't know what happened. We always got all stuff happening, right? And so what do we do? And I know in New York State, I'm assuming it's the same in other states, but I know in New York State, the prison system is now our biggest mental health facility. It's the prison system. I'm assuming that's across the country, but I don't know that. But I know in New York State, The biggest mental facility in New York State is our prison system. It just takes everybody. And even when you're in prison, all they do is give you more drugs. They're not getting any help in prison. They're getting more drugs in prison. It's insane.
I was going to say that the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, he was on the Tucker Carlson show, right? And he was talking about how he can see from outside the country how they're like, and I agree with him, right? They're kind of doing this on purpose. They're deteriorating our society from the inside. Not only are they deteriorating our money, they're deteriorating our society, they're deteriorating morale, crime is spiking, drug use is spiking, suicide is spiking. It's done on purpose because they're trying to, weaken and soften, the American people. So like what CJ was saying, there won't be an uprising because we're so soft and drugged and, the water has fluoride in it.
Yes.
And so all these things play into a factor. So I think he's absolutely right. I think this is all done on purpose to, keep us dull, I guess would be a good term, or just to keep us.
I think that's a valid point. I don't know. I mean, not that I want it. And again, I've been very I don't want it. But
I don't want it either.
There's enough Americans who are actually hardcore enough to actually do a revolution anymore. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. I mean, I have no data on this. I'm just saying my gut, like a feeling. I wonder if we even could if we wanted to, right? I don't even know if we could. Are we so docile and so safe that we wouldn't even do it if we saw it coming? I don't know if we would. I feel like the only possible answer to making our life better is actually stronger local communities. And
Correct.
people actually, like I look at my time in the Marine Corps, right? And for those of you, I don't know if any of you guys are veterans, but any veterans are watching. But the reason why when the sergeant yells charge and the Marines get up and charge the machine gun pit is because you care about the other Marines in your unit. That's why you do it. You do it because there's a Marine next to you that if you don't go, he's going to die, right? So you're going to go. And not just that, you want to impress, you want to feel like a brother. You want to impress the men around you that you're not a coward, that you are strong, that you will stand up, that you will do what's required. And you go and you do the thing. That's what they do, right? That's not just Marines, but I was a Marine, so I use that. But that's soldiers and military people around the world, right? Of course do that. But I think we therefore our community too, or I'm sorry, should do that. Maybe we don't. We should do that for our community. We should want to step up for our community. We should want to care about the people around us. We should want to stand up and defend people and help people and all those things in our community. And I feel like we often don't do that. And I'm not sure if it's urbanization. I'm not sure if it's the breakdown in the family. I don't know what's happening, but I feel like our culture, I live in New York City, and I'm an oddball that I know my neighbors. I'm odd. Most people in my city do not know their neighbors. I do because I'm an oddball, because I know my neighbors, but most don't. And in fact, when I talk to my neighbors, they're a little surprised sometimes when I've worked. Like I know the people around me. Like they're surprised that I know them. Like I ask the questions, how are their kids? And maybe it's because I'm a politician and I'm glad handing. Maybe that's why. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. But the point is, I do know them. But I'm the oddball. I think a lot of people, particularly in cities, don't know their neighbors.
It's not just in cities, it's rural too. When I ran for Congress last year, it was no different in the country than it was in the city. And I think you named a bunch of things, and it's all of that. There has been, in my opinion, a concerted effort to separate Americans by any means necessary. So whether it's black, white, men against women, rich against poor, every attempt has been made by the institutions and by the administrative state.
We call them they.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Right.
If we are busy blaming each other and hating each other, being afraid of one another, putting a mask on and then, starting a snitch line to report on your neighbors,
the snitch line,
make us afraid of one another. If we're busy fighting one another, we're not going to be paying attention to what they're doing. And
you know what? Let me tell you, it's a big thing here. Hold on. RFK Jr. Now, I don't care if you guys like or hate RFK Jr. That isn't my point here. But my point is RFK Jr., when he ran for president, and still running for president, right? His family came out against him. That makes me want to vomit. Like, okay, you're his sister. I have an idea. Shut up. Just say nothing. He's your brother. I get you don't like what he's doing, but you're his sister. Just keep your mouth shut. Let him do his thing, and don't vote for him because you don't like him or whatever. Go vote for Biden or whatever. That's fine.
No, I need my 5 minutes of fame. I need to be relevant. I need to be somebody.
And I will sell my brother out. I would never sell my brother out. Never. Correct. Never. I don't care if my brother thought everything I thought was exactly wrong. If he's running for office, I'll keep my mouth shut. Now, will I say something at a dinner table? Yeah, I might have something to say when we're in private. Of course. I'm not going to sell him out publicly. Never. And we were like, yes, oh, they're so brave. They're so amazing. I was like, what a piece of garbage you are.
Yeah.
I mean, am I wrong on this one?
No, you're not. But that's the whole thing, is that we can't just have normal disagreements anymore. We can't just say, I don't agree, or I have a different take on this. Everyone is the enemy. They're the worst person in the whole wide world. I don't even mind that. I just don't like you selling your family out, is all I'm saying. That's all. There is no loyalty anymore.
Yes.
There
and
just
Trump's
isn't.
family too. Trump's family sold him out too.
Yes.
Just shut up.
The duty and responsibility. So when you talk about, now, first of all, thank you for your service. Both of my uncles were Marines. Both of my grandfathers were, Army, Air Force. My dad was in the Air Force. I come from a family of people who served this country. And so when you are raised in a family, particularly, I'm very grateful. I was raised in a small town where we were safe and we didn't have to deal with a bunch of nonsense, but we had parents who taught us that there is a bigger world out there. And they instilled in us a sense of duty and responsibility to our neighbors and to our community, to the country. And so if you're raised in a family or a community where that is not a priority, where you are not told that you are responsible for helping make things better, that if there is a need, you don't turn your back on that person, you don't wait for the government to fix the problem or come in and save them, you save them, you do it. But so many people nowadays are, oh, well, I'm just going to pay my taxes and therefore I can just turn my back on the needs of my neighbors and shield my eyes from the problem. And so, that's
by the way,
why
you brought this up. This, if you remember from the old, what is the name of A Christmas Carol? The old story of Christmas, Scrooge. If you remember, when someone asks him for money, like someone's asking for alms, and this is from like 1800s, right? He actually says, don't I pay taxes so that the government can create these things? And he walks away feeling righteous.
And there's no way.
This is 150 years ago. People thought that.
There's no way the government or some administrator who's paid to show up to a job is going to care for my neighbor better than I am when there is a direct effect, right? And so this idea that the government...
Hold on. There isn't a direct effect if I just go into my house and lock my door.
Well,
right? There isn't. If I just go into my house, lock my door, put my code in so that I got my security system on, right? So what do I care? I'm behind my security system. What do I care if the homeless guy outside's mad or whatever? And if I get mad, I'll call the cops and they'll come beat him up and I'll be fine. If I live in the right neighborhood. I'm not joking. If you live in the right neighborhood, I call the cops, they come beat him up.
And that is what is wrong. And then and that is when we identify exactly what is wrong, right? Everyone is just turning their back on the problem, on the root of things, instead of taking responsibility, taking personal responsibility, and changing what is so. And that's what, if people actually showed up to the ballot box, if people actually showed up to their local homeless shelter, if people actually mentored the bunch of kids that don't have daddies and are in crappy circumstances, if people actually took responsibility for their community, if they actually knew who their neighbors were, so many of these problems would go away. But
I'm going to tell you a story that's a little disheartening, but it's a me trying to do something right and didn't go as well as I'd hoped. Back after we once we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, and the reservists started coming home, many of them were having big trouble. Many of them were being divorced. They were becoming homeless. They were having all kind of problems, committing suicide, massive problems. So part of my job is I'm a trainer. I'm a corporate trainer. That's what I do for a living. When I'm not doing this, I'm a corporate trainer. So I train people on how to get jobs, all kind of stuff like that. I do a lot of that type of training. So I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to train these guys. I'm going to train them for free. I'm going to try to help them out to get them some jobs, get them back in action, all that kind of good stuff. So I go to the VA and I say, hey, I'll train for free. Don't pay me a dime. I'll do it. Show me where. What can I? Oh, you already know, Ericka. You already know the story already. The VA gave me some type of rubric that was so broken. I was like, I'm not teaching this. They're like, no, you got to teach this. I'm like, none of this works. Like, what do you mean? It's the rubric. Okay, in 1985, that was the rubric. I said, I do training now. Like, this is what I do for a living, right?
Yeah.
I hire and fire people. It's what I do. None of this works. And I said, here's what I'll do. I will show you all I'll give you all free training. You can then see the training. If you think it's good, tell me that and I'll do it. And they went, no, it doesn't matter. You have to do this. I had to stop training for the VA.
Yep.
I had to I went to like Yellow Ribbon Foundation. I went to all the other private charities basically. And I had to train them because they would let me just train and just help the veterans out.
Yeah.
And it was Jericho Project in the Bronx. Like I was doing places like that, right? Doing trainings for people who were in trouble. And I couldn't go to the government because the government literally made it harder for me to do it. I had to go to private communities in neighborhoods. I did neighborhoods in Boston, neighborhoods in New York City. That's what I did. And when I ran for office in 2018, I stopped because I was running for office. And I haven't gone back. And, now I should. But I think because we were leaving Afghanistan, we're no longer in Iraq, I didn't feel like there was much of a need anymore. But now that we're talking, maybe I should get back in that again. But I haven't since 2018, 2017.
So let me say, all of what you guys have been talking about is literally the results or as a byproduct of capitalism. When you spoke about the homeless problem, when you speak about not knowing your neighbor, that is literally a byproduct of capitalism. And let me give you an example. If you look at the construction of new apartment complexes, for example, versus old apartment complexes, the older ones are built in a more communal, like you're able to commute, it was built in a way that it facilitated more social interaction with your neighbor. If you go now, you literally can be in a new apartment complex condo and rarely see your neighbor because it's set up structurally to be separate, and they sell it as privacy, but it's really trying to disconnect us from our neighbors. Because if you disconnect from your neighbors, guess what you can't do, or guess what is harder to do? Organize against the oligarch and the capitalists. It's harder to organize when they do this. So this is just a classic sort of divide and conquer sort of byproduct.
But hasn't this been done in almost? Isn't this in almost every country though? Isn't the architecture in general the same in every
capitalism? Country? Actually, no. In capitalism, I lived in Colombia for a while. Capitalism touches all countries. So even if the country's not capitalist, because the United States and the petrodollar and a bunch of other things and the 800 bases, we control that. So we control what goes on in other countries is basically what I'm saying.
I'm okay. Hold on. So, and this is ignorance on my part. What are you saying? What like time frame are you talking about? Is this like 50 years ago, 100 years ago?
I'm just saying, for example, I'm just thinking anecdotally about my own apartment versus like when I was 5 years old. Yeah. Like I can remember the apartment. And then the apartment complexes that are around me right now, especially the high end ones. And another thing that helps facilitate the disconnection from your neighbor is the culture war. That's another thing that helps facilitate us from disconnecting from our neighbor is culture war shit. So that's why that's pushed so much by both parties and the PR arm of the capitalists, which is like cable news, print media, New York Times, Washington Post, that type of thing.
Let me touch two pieces. One, I'm curious about this architecture idea because I'm not sure when it changed. I can't picture that in my mind. When I look at my apartment building when I was a kid, my apartment when I was a kid was probably built in the 30s. I think was probably built maybe 20s or 30s when I was a kid. It was built then, and it was pretty much the same as the apartment buildings are now. In fact, that apartment building is still in existence now. It's still there in the Bronx now. If you go there, and I think it was built in the 20s or 30s. Many of the apartments that I see in Queens, where I am now, many of them are built in the 30s, and they're kind of the same as those built now. I don't see a difference in that. That one kind of is surprising to me. I'm going to look at that because I think you may have a point. I can't imagine it now. But I want to go to the culture war piece you brought up, and I'm going to tell you my spin on this. And you guys, I'm going conspiracy again. I'm going to go conspiracy again. So maybe I'm right here.
Conspiracy is closer than the truth. Than anything
That's right.
else.
So CJ, maybe you're going to believe me on this one.
Let's hear this.
I think that Occupy Wall Street was a turning point. And I say that because Occupy Wall Street, I think, was initially a very good idea, and it was scary because people were actually saying, wait a minute, there is an oligarchy here. And people were hearing it. I know I was in the city when it happened. I was going down there and supporting the small businesses down there who were getting hammered by the people that I was going in and having lunch downtown every day just to throw some money there for the small business that were getting destroyed. So I was down there giving the hot dog vendors money, whatever. I was doing whatever I could to help out the people down there, small business getting crushed, trying to do my best to do that. And people were afraid. I mean, not people. The oligarchs were afraid. And I think what they said was they heard, wait a minute, these people want our 1%. We don't want to give our 1% up. I tell you what we'll do. How about this? We'll hire some black women. How about that? And then we'll say that gay people are cool. We'll do that. How about that? Will that work? And I think because the Occupy Wall Street people weren't strong enough in their organization, weren't strong enough in what they wanted to achieve, weren't clear enough in their leadership, that the 1% could easily go in and throw stuff at them and break them up and say, see, we're giving you something. We're giving you culture war stuff. So you're winning. And the Occupy Wall people said in general, oh, are we winning? Are we winning? I guess we're winning. Okay, we can walk away now. And they walked away. And what they got was, more, I don't know, they got more representation is what they got, but no fundamental change in a system that keeps giving them 1% more. No actual change in economics, but instead a change in cultural acceptance. So now we'll put more gay people or black people or women or whatever you think is the current woke thing. We'll do that. We'll make you happy. We'll do some training. We'll do that. But please don't take our money or power. Don't take our money or power. We will do the culture stuff you want. Or we'll change bathrooms. How about we'll fight about bathrooms? Let's fight about bathrooms. How about that? We'll fight about bathrooms. Or just let us keep our 1% our power. That's
agree.
what I think actually was a key piece.
When did and that comes back to Bitcoin. When was Occupy Wall Street? When did that happen? Right before Bitcoin. Exactly right. Bitcoin came out. Exactly right. Because the Bitcoin Satoshi figured out, oh shit. He got pissed. Yeah. They're not going to change anything. Exactly. They're buying it. They're buying this culture war stuff. They're not going to change anything. I'm making Bitcoin. I completely agree. I think that's right.
And that, Obama was president. And he was fighting to keep, the bankers in charge, make sure that they still got their,
Obama's president.
Well, more than that, there was a fear of attacking him and attacking his administration for buying, the too big to fail narrative. They got away with all of that nonsense because, there was no scandals. The Obama administration was scandal free because God forbid you should say anything bad about the first black president of the United States. And if you challenged him, if you challenged his administration, administration, you are a racist, you're a bigot, you're a this, you're a that. And so I think that there was a lot of people who just sort of went along with things so as to, go along to get along. You also have an incredibly corrupt legislature, which is why I am for term limits for Congress.
Yes.
The fact that it is obvious and it is clear that the legislature, that our Congress is enriching themselves off of the back of a bunch of nonsense. And there is so many, as a person whose job is in finance, okay, I look at some of the products that you can buy and sell that are called investments, and I'm like, how is this even legal?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And
yes.
I was calling this stuff out back in 2007, 2008, before.
And it hasn't gotten better.
It happened.
Ericka. It has not gotten better.
And until the American people stand up and say, no more, we need to abolish the administrative state. We need to restore the federal government to the size that it should be, which is teeny tiny, with limited powers. Again, hashtag abolish the Fed, go back to a gold standard or Bitcoin, Chris. Some other sane looking form of government.
I want to touch your piece that really bothered me on a personal note.
Yeah.
Right? This is a personal for me. I was so disappointed in Obama.
Yeah.
So disappointed in Obama. And look, I understand logically, I understand why he did what he did logically. Like I can put myself in his head and kind of understand why he did what he did. It doesn't mean I'm happy about it. The banks are just as big as they always have been, if not bigger. The oligarchy is as strong as it's ever been, if not stronger. And not if stronger, it is stronger. And he did nothing to stop any of that.
He did
nothing to stop any of that.
We do not have a free market and we do not have capitalism if the federal government subsidizes things, okay? That is not a free market. That is not capitalism. If the federal government can pick winners and losers and say anybody's
Ericka,
too big to fail.
I'm not fighting you on what you're saying, but he didn't promise that. Right? He didn't.
Yeah.
Ron Paul didn't win the election. If Ron Paul had won the election, then I would expect that. Right?
No,
but
that's what I'm agreeing with you. I mean,
Obama didn't promise any of that.
No, he just. I can't logically figure out anything except for the fact that he's just another corrupt politician.
Correct, and he wasn't supposed to be that. That's correct.
Yeah, no, Obama is
supposed
terrible.
To be hope and change.
Yeah, Obama's terrible. He's a war criminal, and all the things that you guys are saying. He's terrible, and the black community, we say this all the time. RBN needs to wake up about fucking Obama. He's a war criminal. You should be in a hog somewhere, that guy.
Well, but one thing I'll give Obama, he is the only person I know who won a Nobel Peace Prize by bombing 8 countries.
What?
So well done. I mean, well done. That's impressive. I'm just going to say that is impressive to win a peace prize.
This is what I'm saying.
Bombing 8 countries. That's
impressive. Like I remember when that happened, and I was like, so wait, he is getting a Nobel Peace Prize because he's black and got elected?
Yes.
What? But he's only been there for 5 minutes, and he literally just started a war.
Yep.
In a supported war in this other country.
100%.
What?
Yes.
That's when you know you're living in clown world.
So that's what I'm saying. I think that was a key part of the culture war, in my view. It was Occupy Wall Street. The 1% figured out, if we throw this culture war stuff at people, they'll ignore us. They'll ignore us as we keep gobbling up more stuff. We'll keep gobbling up more stuff.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And that's exactly what they're doing now with even on Twitter, man. I just see so much racial division and race wars between the left and the right, I think there's racism on both sides, right? Unfortunately, like blacks and whites, I hate to see it. I call it out anytime I can, but it's done that way on purpose, right?
That's right.
To divide us and to separate us, and like CJ was saying, divide and conquer, and it's working. And they're going to do it more and more because of inflation, and more people are going to be struggling, and more people are going to be upset. And the only way to get our minds off of that is to distract us with this BS.
Yep.
So
that's why notice. And Chris, I'm really curious about your opinion of this. Notice that they had the UFO hearings in Congress on the same day that they dismissed the charges for Mr. Sam Bankman-Fried,
Yes.
who, was the second largest donor to political campaigns behind George Soros in the last election.
We talked about this absolutely. We talked about this in one of our spaces that I go on in the morning. We talk about, weekly news or just daily news, right? And, if you have money to commit crimes, you're not going to do any jail time. But if you're poor and you commit crimes, you're doing jail time. And it's just
good luck with that public defender.
Part of what I do also is I also consult with defense attorneys, right? In cases, right? So I try to assist people who are, I try to assume people are innocent unless proven guilty. I know, crazy, but I do that. I actually try to help out with that. And what I found is if you can write a check for 6 figures, if you have that kind of money, you can actually get a fair trial in America. You can. If you can write a check for 6 figures or more, you can get a fair trial in America. And if you're convicted, you can get fair sentencing. That does exist. Yeah. If you write a check for 7 figures or more, you can actually get off. Even if you're guilty, you can just get off. That's absolutely possible. You can get off if you can write a check for 7 figures. If you can't write a check for either, you are guilty. Period. Accept that as true. You are guilty. Your goal is, how do I get the best deal because I'm guilty? It doesn't matter if you are guilty. If you are arrested and you can't write a check for 6 figures, you are guilty. That's just how this works in the system. And I wish I was lying, but I'm telling you, I've seen it many times. And I have seen people, this is a true story I tell us often. The first time I did this, the guy I work with, he was innocent. How do I know he was innocent? I'm on the defense team. They tell me everything. I get all the information. So I know he was innocent. He went to jail. Broke my heart. Because before that, I still believed in my heart somehow. It's okay. The system won't be that bad. I still believe that I still had that in my mind. It can't be that bad, right? It can't be that bad. It'll be okay. It can't be that bad. Boy, was I wrong. And that I was literally depressed for about a week. Like I couldn't go to work. I was so broken up because I kept blaming myself, saying, "Oh my God, what could I have done? What could I have done? What could I have done?" And of course, he was black, of course, right? And I didn't want that to be the thing either. I didn't want to believe that to be true. Like I wanted to believe in the system. And man, that was just so disheartening for me to see that happen. I mean, look, I know it happened before, but I was never this close. I was intimate in the case, and I thought the case was true and real, and I could do it. And man, it was terrible to see it go under.
That sucks.
Yes.
Terrible.
And so anyway, I'm yapping away, but yes, that's a person that bothers me tremendously. I don't know. Maybe we went way off topic. Let me, if I could, I know we kind of went off topic. So, look, guys, I want to make sure that I do a little bit of admin real fast if I could. If you like what we're talking about, please retweet this if you're watching on Twitter. Click that like
Larry,
button.
I sent you a private message real quick. I do.
Yes, I am wrapping. I
have dinner time. I'm in Cali, so I have dinner time now. So I'm gonna have to back out.
CJ, thank you for staying, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you for staying. Thank you for staying.
Absolutely,
I really mean it.
and love the show. It got a lot better after a certain point, and lots of great comments. I see a lot of the same people seeing my comments. So I'm wondering, we have a lot of, I'm assuming it's libertarians and conservatives. We do have a lot of sort of a big audience. 35% of our audience is conservatives. So love seeing it, and thank you again, Larry. I'll be happy to come back on again to talk more about socialism and capitalism. Excellent. So thank you, sir.
All righty. Have a good one, my friend. I'll see you soon. So, Chris, I got to get you to move over now. There we go. Now you're good. Okay, good. There we go. Yes, good. So, yes, I'm glad CJ stayed. I know he was getting a little heated. I'm still glad he stayed. So, yes. The one thing that you'll find on this show that I do all the time is I always try to get people on who don't agree with me. And I want to try to get them to stay because I want to make sure we have conversations. And I want us always to humanize each other. It's very important because, to your point, Chris, most media, even private media, non-corporate media, is siloed. They're echo chambers, right? They're echo chambers, right? Clearly, I'm not a socialist. I'm obviously a libertarian. But if you know, I knew a lot of CJ's arguments because I hear them often. So I knew a lot of his arguments. Like I knew you stepped into a trap. Like, okay, that's a trap. I heard that one before. So like I knew that already. So I knew that was going to happen. So I do try to make it happen. I think we need to talk to each other. And here's the thing, I hope at least, that all of us do want the same positive outcome, better for everybody. I hope that's true at least.
I think that's true most Americans. The disagreement comes in when we start talking about who's responsible, whose responsibility it is, and where, and how do we get there? I don't know anybody, unless they're a legitimate sociopath, who's like, I just hope everybody dies and screw my neighbors and, everybody can go suck it. Like, I don't know anybody who's like, I want things to be worse for my kids than they are for me.
You don't know enough libertarians, Ericka. I know a couple of them. You don't know enough libertarians. Yes. We literally have a name for them. Do you know that? We have a name. It's called collapsitarians.
What?
Yes, I'm not joking. You don't know enough libertarians.
For real?
Yes, they're called collapsitarians. Yes.
They want things to suck?
All the collapse. Yes. All to go down, all to go under, collapsitarians. Yes, they're actually
I feel like I can agree with a little bit of that sentiment, because the only way
see, there we go.
The only reason why is because the only way you're going to be able to change this is if this system does collapse. There's no change going to happen unless the system collapses. In my opinion,
uncomfortable. You have to be uncomfortable.
Well, see, I know, but see, Eric, that's my point. There are a lot of people. I think CJ actually would rather have an armed revolution. I think he'd actually rather have one, right? And I get there are many libertarians who would agree with that, but they just don't want to overthrow the government. They want to just move away from the government and become their own separate country. So I think that's also true. My point is, I'm trying my best to just keep talking so we can find answers that will move closer. The reason why I brought that piece up, by the way, is I had a policy when I was running for governor that I would actually support co-ops, right? Meaning that I think we should have a law in New York State that when a company is going bankrupt, there's a 90-day gap window where vultures cannot step in, that you give an opportunity for the workers to get a loan to buy the company. Now, that's voluntary socialism, voluntary co-ops. If you don't want to buy the company, don't buy it. If you can't get the money, you can't get the money. But if you can, go get it. Go get the money. Buy the company out. Don't let it go bankrupt. Right now, the vultures come in right away. In the first 90 days, the vultures start coming right in, right? Immediately. Mm-hmm. I'm saying the government says, no, there's a 90-day gap to give the workers a chance if they can raise the money to buy the company.
That's an interesting concept.
There we go. What am I doing? I'm supporting co-ops. Not just that. The government would, if you're going to go get unemployment, the government will give every employee all their unemployment up front as collateral to get another loan to buy the company. So they get all the money up front. So the bank will help them to buy the company. The government's going to spend the money anyway. But why would I just give it to someone to sit home and play video games when I can give it to somebody to start a business?
Because they want to keep people poor, man. Come on now. You know
that is correct. That's why no one does that. And that's always my point. If you're leaning left, and I say this, they go, wait a minute, why aren't Democrats doing it? Because Democrats are corporatists, and they actually don't want to help anybody, and that's why they won't do it.
Exactly.
Both sides, both sides are corrupt, and both sides have a vested interest in keeping the status quo, and that's
Ericka,
reality.
You are clearly not left-leaning, and you were like, that's not a bad idea. That's the point.
The whole point, the purpose of the government is to protect our rights. That's the thing that I think is what is so lost on people nowadays. The appropriate use of the government is to protect our inalienable rights. Okay, so the government, nowhere in our Constitution does it say that the government is responsible for charity, as an example. Right. I may agree or disagree with there being a social safety net, but that is beside the point. Yep. Our original agreement with the government is that their job is solely to protect our rights as citizens. That's why deconstructing monopolies is appropriate purview of the government. That's
well, the
why
one thing I want to bring up though here with now, I'm talking theory versus practice, and many people will many more pure libertarians will get angry at me because I don't just go abolish the welfare state. Yeah. Do I want to abolish the welfare state? Of course I do, just not right away. Why? Not because it's wrong, because we have spent the last 3, 4, 5 decades putting people on the welfare state. It's as if I have a daughter. I don't, but I do have a daughter, but say I had a daughter who's 30 and I've kept her in my home all 30 years. I've never made her get a job. I've never made her pay rent. I've cooked for her meals. I've done her laundry. I've done everything for her for 30 years. And now I go, you got to get out tomorrow. That's actually unfair. It's right. She's an adult. She should go out on her own. That's true. But I've actually been unfair. I have given her no incentive. I've enabled her for 30 years. And now I throw her out. Well, again, the argument is she's an adult. That's a valid argument. But also, I'm kind of guilty. I have enabled my daughter for 30 years. So my reason why I don't want to just abolish the welfare state is we've enabled Americans for 50 years.
Yes.
So we have to wean them off and something else. This is the part I think is critical. If communities can't support people who fall down and fail, then we have to have government. So let's empower communities to support and help people who fall down. So we don't need government, right? And one of the other policies I had was anyone who's going to be paying for any taxes, whatever taxes they're going to be paying, you're going to write your check to your state government at the end of the year. You have an option of taking $250 and giving to any charity you want in the state instead of sending it to the government. If it's local in your county, double the $500. What does that do?
Already doing that though. The government's giving money. Well, like as an example, I don't know about every state, but one of the things Vermont does is almost everything is run by these nonprofits. The majority of the money that goes to the state is then siphoned off.
No. Hold on. No. Hold on. I gotta be clear on this, Ericka. You're right. I don't want that. I'm not saying that. See, right now, most nonprofits are actually government funded.
Correct.
Which means they're nonprofits. They're government agencies that are not unionized. That's what they actually are. They're non-unionized government agencies.
Yes.
I'm saying the money goes directly from me to the nonprofit, not through the government. So if I have to write a check to the government for $1,000 at the end of the year, I can only give the government $500 if I want to. And instead, I take $500 and give it to a local charity. That's an option I will have. Now, why does that matter? $500, who cares? How about when 1,000 people do it? 10,000 people do it. That now can fund a nonprofit directly from the taxpayer directly, not through the government. So now there's no strings attached. And there's no grant writing. Let me finish my point. It also must be now every year. So if I don't do the thing right, I don't get any more money. With the government grant, I get more money.
I mean, if we had some accountability, that would also go a long way, because that's part of, like, Vermont has the highest paid executives in nonprofits. So if you're the executive director of a nonprofit, you're likely making 6 figures plus all of these, benefits and all this other stuff. And it's all taxpayer funded. And there's virtually no accountability, no auditing of these organizations or entities at all. Just like there's no auditing of the government at all.
100%.
So
100%.
I'm so glad I don't pay taxes.
I think, I think your idea of like a weaning off is really interesting. And of course, my big thing is always coercion. When it's government coerced, if you're taking money out of my pocket at the end of a gun and telling me that if I don't give you my money, otherwise you're going to take my stuff and put me in jail, it's still not a solution. So But I
agree, but this goes back to what CJ was talking about. CJ thinks the whole system's broken, we got to change it. You think the whole system's broken, we got to change it. All I'm saying is neither of those two things are going to change. Taxes are not going away tomorrow. I wish they were. I wish they were, but they're not.
How do we
Right?
get, what is an interim? Like, what is
I have two things I brought up. The first thing we have to do is, and this is the hardest part, and for the libertarians listening, they're going to want to explode, but here's the reality. The vast majority of Americans believe that taxation is the only answer for society. They cannot imagine anything else.
Oh, it's so true.
How do I know that? Yes, because if you look at any of the polling they do on taxes, they do polling all the time on taxation, all the time. Always more than 50% say we're taxed enough or not, or we need to be taxed more. More than 50% always say we're taxed enough or should be taxed more.
That's the consumers for you, which is why I teach financial education. Like, for an example, if you work at a W-2, right, what you can do is, if your job allows it, instead of being a W-2, you can become a 1099, right? And your corporation or your business that you work for will save money on taxes. So then you will also save money on taxes because you're not getting taxed as a W-2. You can now write off your gas. You can now write off your clothes. You can now save a lot of money, right? But, that's why I teach financial education. But, a lot of people just don't want to learn, right?
100%.
And they get mad about Donald Trump not paying taxes. It's like, don't get mad at him, bro. You need to learn what he learns. You need to do
I'm agreeing.
Corporate life.
I say the same. Look, I live in New York City. I have a wife who does not work and 2 kids. Somehow I pay all my bills, but I never seem to make more than $100,000 a year. I never broke $100,000. Huh? How'd that happen? Because as you know, Ericka, I have a good accountant, and to your point, Chris, I have several entities.
That's right.
I don't have one. I have several.
That's right.
So yes, somehow I pay my bills. It's weird, huh? How that would happen, but I do.
Corporate life is the way to go.
That's what that $600 for Jay's a year can go towards paying an accountant to tell you how to not have to pay taxes. I'm just saying.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
Tax avoidance is legal. Okay.
No. Tax
avoidance.
No, it's not legal. It is our duty as an American.
Right. Why do we leave Great Britain? Why do we leave Great Britain?
I love it.
Yes.
Tax, right? Oh my God.
That is correct. That's why it's rich.
We can use some of that $600 to start
people for 4% tax. We shot people for 4% tax.
Exactly my point. Use some of that $600 that you're going to spend on Jordans to open up an LLC.
Amen.
There we go. Yes.
Amen. Then
100%.
Dump your tea in the freaking ocean.
Yes.
Say, suck it, Britain.
Absolutely. 100%. I love what you're saying. But what I found is an interesting story I've told before, but this is interesting. When I used to sell cars years ago, and when I would sell cars, I would know someone's socioeconomic class by how they bought the car. And when I first started, I would feel compelled, but I would know if someone was from a lower socioeconomic class, they would just walk in and go, "What's the monthly note?" They wouldn't want to know how much the car cost. They wouldn't want to know what the interest rate was.
Right.
Nothing. What's the monthly note? I would say, well, I can get it lower if I give you a lease. They wouldn't care if they own the car at the end. That wasn't a thing. They just want to know what's the monthly note. That's it. So when I first started selling cars, I would try, like I'd feel bad. I'd be like, Chris, let me explain to you the contract. They would shoo me away. Like, stop. Stop. Can I afford this thing? Okay, I'll give you the car. I'll take your money. Wow. Like they're begging me. They're like, shut up and take my money. Okay, I'll shut up and I'll take your money. But even when I would try, but then the sad people would ask me, okay, what's the difference at the end of the lease? How long is the lease? They would ask everything, right? Because a common thing that they'll do in car dealerships is when you go to buy the car, they'll give you a low price to buy the car. And you go in and go, can you make it lower? I could turn to a lease. They go, okay, great. And they'll lower the lease, but they'll actually in the back raise the price of the car.
And then you don't see
and no one notices.
They've made it so that the mileage is lower.
Yes.
You're going to have less on the back end. The buyout
100%.
will be higher.
Absolutely. All those things.
That is banker's going to bank. Okay.
Banker's going to bank. Camera's going to scam. Idiots going to be idiots, right?
And that is, it really is unfortunate. And I think many people, I mean, my husband's told me stories about like even his mom, he grew up like middle class. And there were stories that he told me about his mom saying, "Oh yeah, I knew that was a thing." And he was like, "Well, why didn't you teach me that? And how come we aren't doing this?"
Right.
And
Yes.
I think it's not until you have a personal experience of getting screwed over by the government or by a bank or, a credit card or whatever. And then you go, oh,
I remember my first time I got screwed by a credit card company. I probably was like, I don't know, 19, 20. I forgot what I was. I was a kid, basically. And I missed the payment and my interest rate shot up.
oh yeah.
And I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
what? They could do that? They could do. I didn't know. I didn't bother reading it. I didn't know anything, right? I was like, oh no, I thought I could just, I'll pay him next month, whatever, right? I thought that was okay. No. And I was like, okay. But to your point, Ericka, lesson learned. That was a lesson I learned. I don't do that anymore. But I didn't know. No one told me that. I didn't learn that.
Chris,
I didn't know how that worked.
forgive me if I'm forgetting, but what was your inspiration, or like why did you get into Bitcoin? What got you so passionate about this idea of a decentralized currency?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, and I didn't go over it. I actually, I remember, I'm 34, so I actually remember when, we had that recession. It was horrible. It was so terrible. My son was born around that time. My son was born in 2010. So I have one child. So I just remember it was just so, I was just so mad. I didn't understand money back then. I was only 19, 20 back then. So, I didn't understand money, right? I didn't understand what was going on, but, I knew something was wrong, right? So fast forward years later, I have my son, right? And I'm working at a job, right? I'm paying the highest taxes. I'm working more, right? I used to get paid more in 2013, right? That money used to go farther in 2013 than it did in 2016, 2017, right? Because of inflation, right? Because they had to print money, because they bailed out the banks, taxpayers paid for it, right? So I felt that I didn't know what it was until about 2016. Well, I heard about Max and Stacy, who taught me about why our government is corrupt and why we have to work harder and why everything happened. And they're the ones who introduced me to Bitcoin. So even when they did introduce me to Bitcoin, I didn't understand it. I had to put in the work, right? So in anything in life, you have to put in the work and you have to take time to learn what it is, right? So at that point, I thought it was a stock. It was $1,000. It was like $500, $800, right? Back when I first got into it, I'm like, man, this stock, I thought it was a stock. I didn't really understand what it was. And then I bought some, right? And then it went from $1,000 to $20,000. So like at that point, and then it crashed, right? And then it went down. Then we had, then I had another chance to get back in, So at that point, I did my due diligence. I learned about fractional reserve banking. I learned about the Cantillionaire effect. I learned about when we went off the gold standard. I learned about how our purchasing power has gone down ever since we came off the gold standard. So once you learn these things, and I have a child, right? And I don't want him to, what's the money going to be like for him growing up? It's going to be even worse for him than it is for us. So once I understood that and I learned about it, it just made me so mad that our government and everything that we've been taught is a lie. Our school systems put us in these, and they indoctrinate us to, work and be slaves, right? And to be a good employee, right? And to be a good worker versus you being an entrepreneur, right? So these things made me so mad. And it put a fire in my butt to learn about money, right? Which is why I teach financial education, including, Bitcoin. So, yeah, oh my God, it just made me so mad. I'm like, what can I do? Can I go storm the office? Can I go storm, the White House? No, I can't. But I can buy Bitcoin and opt out and,
Where do you live? We should get you to run for office.
Absolutely. I live in Florida.
Let me grab a couple super chats if I could. Roger's throwing a lot of money at me tonight. Thank you, Roger, so much. He says the First Amendment power is to finance general welfare. And I do think that is a point, right? That the Constitution does say for the general welfare. So I think that is a point, but I don't know how far do you take that is the question, Roger, right? And I think you want to make it to where the point that I want to bring up here is what I brought up with CJ, and I really mean this. A lot of people on the left, their comment is, or their worry is, that right now, the way the system is, there are a lot of people who are in trouble who basically are coerced. And they're coerced because they're in a bad spot right now, particularly if they're older and didn't have a good college degree or don't have a good experience. to where they have to work just to survive, and there is some coercion there. And I think it's a valid point. It's a valid point, which is why I'm not against trying to make things easier for the person who doesn't have that education, like changing licensing laws, right? Making it easier to buy your own company, right? So that someone who's a worker can still gain some ownership. Allowing people who are in public housing to go to a rent to own, so they can actually, begin to own things. I'm actually open to a public bank, and as libertarians, most people don't like that, but I'm actually open to that being a public bank, because I feel there's got to be a way of supporting localized credit unions. There's got to be a way of supporting it to get these people back into a spot to where they can get get back into a spot. I do feel like there is an issue there. And the second thing I'll bring up is looking at certain families in the country. Imagine if you, and I know if this is not your case of either of you, but imagine if you could, that neither of you ever saw your mother or father go to work. You never saw them go to work. Not just that, you never saw your uncles or aunts go to work. You never saw your grandparents go to work. You never saw that. That was not a part of your lifestyle. You never, as you were growing up, saw your parents, your uncles or aunts, or your grandfathers go up and go to work. We're starting now to have a series of kids who have that environment in their life. They've never seen anybody go to work. How would they be? Right? It's hard.
Yeah. That's why I say UBI. I think they're going to do that, if anything. I think UBI is definitely going to come because of what you're saying. And not only that, we have to remember AI is going to, the technology is going to eclipse, and nobody's ready for what's coming. You think they don't know what's coming? That's why people are just so naive.
Yes.
AI, they know what they're doing. They're going to weave everybody out. They're going to get you off.
My daughter is right now an artist, right? She's studying art. She's in art school right now. And I told her years ago, because I saw us coming. She's like, Daddy, I'm worried about AI. I said, you should. That's a savvy worry. So what you have to realize is something else. It's good if you can draw or create well. That's good. That's a good thing. I'm glad you can do that. But it's more important to know what to draw, what to create. Because that AI doesn't know yet. One day it might, but it doesn't now. It still needs people to put in the prompt, right? It can't do it on its own yet. It needs people to put in the right prompt. It needs that now. So the key when it comes to AI is not doing the thing well. It's knowing what to do. I think that's how we can make AI work for anybody. Otherwise, you're right. We're in trouble. We are in trouble. There's no doubt. And here's the worst part. We thought that AI, initially we thought automation was only going to hurt the people in the $15 an hour jobs, right? We thought that was going to be the $10 an hour jobs, the $9 an hour. No. AI affects people who are making $100,000 a year. People making $200,000 a year.
Everybody.
It'll affect everybody.
Lawyers.
And they're talking about, scanning actors' bodies so that they can no longer have to have extras in movies. They have AI writing scripts. And so instead of having, 15 or 20 writers in a writer's room, you have 6. And it is eliminating everything. One's job is safe.
Gone. Junior lawyers.
Accountants.
Junior
in many
accountants.
Cases.
Gone. Yes, absolutely. You'll still need a couple to overlook what the AI did. But if you used to have 10 accountants, junior accountants, you'll need 2 now.
Same with writers, actors, McDonald's workers, grocery store employees. It is affecting everyone.
And that's why I said UBI. They know what's coming. That's why I think UBI is. But it's more.
Michael Voss says UBI is a terrible idea. It means more inflation and massively more poor people under government control. Say no to UBI. I don't think anybody here is saying UBI is a good idea.
Yeah,
I think we're saying it's inevitable.
Exactly. It's something that's going to come. And whether you can opt out,
with you
can get rich and opt out, right? Because inflation is the opposite of what Bitcoin's going to do, right? Bitcoin's going to, deflate and go up in value over time. So if you want to do that, that's an option. But based on what we're talking about.
I came up with a negative income tax idea that Milton Friedman brought up. I came up with that, not because I think it's a good idea, because I think UBI is inevitable. So if I think it's inevitable, I'd rather have negative income tax before people got mad at me. Some people who got mad at me because of UBI, they were like, no, you want negative income tax to stop UBI. Yes. Guilty
what
as
is
charged.
negative income tax? I've never heard this before.
Negative income tax is a little bit different. Negative income tax, not everybody gets $1,000 or $10,000, whatever the money is. Negative income tax is there's a baseline. For the sake of argument only, it's $1,500 a month. That's the sake of argument only. The number may change or be different. That's the baseline.
That you get back or that you pay. I just think.
Let me finish. Before you go, Ericka, you asked what it was. Let me tell you what it is. It's $1,500 is the baseline. For every dollar you make, you lose 50 cents of your stipend. So let's say $1,500 is your stipend every month. So now you make $500 this month. You lose $250 of your stipend. And it allows someone to work their way off of it. It gives you an incentive. There's no benefits cliff. There's no cliff. It allows you to work your way off versus UBI. Everybody gets the money, period. With UBI, you have to give people enough money to survive on their own. You have to. With negative income tax, you don't, because you can still work and you can start to make some more money. So it is a better answer than UBI. It is still an income. But to Chris's point and my point, I think UBI is inevitable. If we don't find a better answer, we're getting UBI. And I think how they do, my opinion on UBI, I'll give my other opinion. I think it's going to be, and Chris, I think will be on my side on this one. Once they add the CBDC, the central bank digital coin, when they add that, the way they'll encourage people to use it is through UBI of the digital dollar. That is how they'll get people to use it. UBI, digital dollar, that's how they'll use it. I don't want that. So that's why I'm accepting negative income tax as a better answer to avoid UBI. Does that make sense?
I mean,
God, you still hate it, Eric. I can see your face.
I mean, anything makes sense if you accept the premise that it is okay to take the money out of other people's pockets. It only makes sense if you accept the premise that you are entitled to other people's labor, which last I knew was called slavery. So when we as Americans or as people say that I am entitled to your stuff and the fruits of your labor, we used to call that slavery. And I think that sense of entitlement.
Hear me out. Hold on. Hear me out.
Is such a problem.
Here is the response to this. Let me give you the response. The response is people like the Walton family who own Walmart, they don't even put any labor anymore. They just get billions of dollars every single year. In fact, they're so wealthy that they don't require salaries anymore. Their money just makes so much money, literally no labor. And the counter argument is, and I know this, I deal with a lot of people from the left. That's how I know these arguments. The argument is, what did they do? They have no labor. They put no labor. In fact, the money they're getting is from the labor of others. That's what they're getting. They're getting money from the labor of others. So so if anyone's entitled, it's them, not the other person who is working to survive. That is the response.
I believe first in self-ownership. So Walter Williams was an economist who had a tremendous impact on me, and putting sort of some of the nails in the coffin of my liberalism. And when you listen to him talk about this idea of self-ownership, and that I own myself and I own my labor, and through things like the First Amendment, with freedom of association, through free markets, I get to choose who I do business with and all of those things. And
Lily, I believe what you're saying. I have a shirt that says it.
And so, so we can do lots of things to try to make up for what our corrupted governmental system has created in the form of monopolies and other things. And we can agree to disagree that family wealth formation is a problem.
Yes.
I think that the Walton family should get to make as much money as they want, and Americans can choose whether or not to shop at their stores, and they can choose to shop at Walmart instead of their
but hold
local
on.
grocery store
But
or
the answer
their
with
other
that
options.
is, you say they can choose, but the current system that the government has set up, they actually can't. In other words, they've set up a system to where we have a welfare system to where the government actually pays for the health care of Walmart. So now Walmart can charge so much less prices and do everything the way they want, and allows for a monopoly to where the local people get put out of business. In fact, in most states, and this happens in New York State all the time, the state bribes the big business to come in, giving it tax breaks and literally cash to come in and bring new jobs. When it does that, it now competes against local businesses, and they all got a business.
So governments don't give
with
businesses cash. What they do is they choose not to tax them corporate income tax.
Yes.
That is not giving them cash. That is saying, we want your business to come here to create jobs, and those jobs then create taxable income in the form of payroll taxes, income taxes, and other things.
However, it literally never works ever. Let me be very clear. It never works. Every single time a company says, we're going to come in and we're going to have 200 jobs that are 6 figures and 300 jobs that are under 6 figures, they never make those numbers ever. And then all the abatements they get, which you're talking about the abatements and stuff, they get all those abatements, which I call cash, because and the reason why I say it's cash is, whenever they make that move, that company has X dollars they plan on spending for the move.
Well, but
anything that's not going to taxes, they now have as cash. So you're correct. They don't give them cash. I'm just saying they now have the cash. And I'm almost not done. Then once the goodies go away, the company packs up and leaves.
And that's why I think that all governments should be smaller. They shouldn't even have the opportunity to be giving tax breaks. Again, picking winners and losers. And so what we have is yet another example of the government being the problem. And so I'm always going to reject a solution that is based on on government coercion and taking money out of the pockets of the American people when the government is the one who created the problem in the first place. And so it's just this continuation, and that's the problem.
The government breaks your leg, picks your pocket, and then buys you a crutch with the money they stole and goes, you're welcome.
And then says, I want a piece of it. I'm going to charge you sales tax on top of it.
Absolutely, yes. So, by the way, Roger says, worker co-ops is owning your labor. And I agree. Like, I'm not against worker co-ops. I actually support, I think they're a great idea. I don't know what type of company is going to be successful in the worker co-op world. I don't know, right? Does size matter in this case? Does industry matter? I don't know. But I think if we support worker co-ops the way we support any other company, let them go. And we'll allow co-ops to go as they see fit. People can own their own labor. They can decide what they want to decide.
No one is stopping any co-ops from forming. Nobody is stopping any communes from forming. Nobody's getting in the way. Well,
Eric, no. The government is.
And not where I'm from.
And finances. Maybe not in Vermont, but in New York they are. Yes.
Not in New York, or not in Vermont, not in Texas. There are no laws against co-ops.
Oh, no, not the laws against it, but they stop financing.
Well, then get your bread, get that bag, and start that.
That's what I'm
stuff
saying.
Yourself. I mean, again, but then it's like, the government is whatever. I have clients that are co-ops. You can start a commune. You can go buy some land and start a commune. Nobody's stopping you. And in my experience, in the places that I have lived, there is nobody stopping co-ops or communes from forming and happening. And again, that's in a free market system.
New York is not a free market system. And New York is all about old money. which means old money, old bank. For a progressive state, New York is very conservative.
Absolutely.
That's true. For a progressive state, New York is very conservative. So, and people don't know that. Yes, we are all about old money, old banking rules. Yes. Come here,
think,
Ericka. You'll be shocked.
Absolutely. I think they might have changed it, but one of my friends, she couldn't buy they weren't allowed to buy Bitcoin for a while in New York.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like
that's correct. They stopped you from buying Bitcoin. Yes, you have to have a bit license.
Exactly. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yes. Yeah.
Crazy.
So Ericka, you'll be surprised how they slow you down, how bankers don't want to even talk to you if you're a co-op. Like they don't want to insure you if you're a co-op. Oh, it's
then you leave New York.
People
stop telling people to do that. They're leaving in droves, Ericka. Shh.
I mean, but that is the whole thing. We live in the 50 United States of America. And I think that's one of the fundamental things that people have forgotten. If you don't like the governance of your state, get out.
I lose 300,000 New Yorkers every year, Ericka. Don't stop encouraging them.
Well, if New York has a bunch of suckers who refuse to stand up for themselves and get to the polls.
I'm running for office every 4 years.
Trust me, my man. Trust me, I did the same thing in Vermont. I ran for Congress. I provided the opportunity, tried to be reasonable, have reasonable conversations with people. There are too many Americans who are too comfortable, too soft, too checked out to actually get up and go to the polls. They will complain to you all day about what is wrong and what is going on, and they will 100%. Not get up. They will not go to the polls. They will not vote. They will not volunteer for a campaign. They don't actually care. They just want to complain. And so you can't save people. This is the one thing that I have learned if I have learned anything in the years that I have been involved in politics, is you cannot save people.
I agree.
They don't want to save themselves. I said that earlier.
100%.
I agree 100%.
Yes.
And that's why we should not have things like UBI or negative income tax, because there are too many people who refuse to take responsibility for themselves. They refuse to take responsibility for their community. They can't even show up to vote to save hundreds of millions of dollars in crap that people don't need, can't afford. Vermont, a state of 500,000 people, where 70% of the electorate doesn't work because they're either under the age of 18 or over the age of 65, and they passed $1 billion budget.
I remember. Yes.
Okay. These people are not willing to stand up for themselves.
Well, look, let's be clear. I know a $1 billion budget, but I'm from New York. That's high school numbers for me. That's not even close to pro numbers. You're not even coming. You in junior high school.
I can tell you, as a hardworking American, these people cannot have my money, and I'm leaving.
Our New York State passed a budget of $230 billion. Literally, Florida has more people than us and half the budget. Texas has more people of us and almost half the budget. So when it comes to budgets, I got you beat. I'm just saying we're top of the line here. Okay.
Yeah, but at least you have you don't have one of the oldest states in the union, and people are actually working.
That is also true. Yes.
This is why I'm voting with my feet, and I'm leaving. I'm not going to support Texas.
You want to Texas? There we go.
I am not staying in a state where they believe that they're entitled to my labor. The state of Vermont is not entitled to my labor.
I'm in Florida.
You're in Florida. Both states with no income tax.
That's
correct.
Yes. Yeah. I was considering moving to Tennessee, another state with no state income tax.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Texas gets, again, I said it earlier, Texas gets their bag, okay? The property taxes are high. It's more expensive to register your car here. They still pay for things, but it is significantly less. The cost of living is significantly less.
And the government intrusion is significantly less also.
Correct.
New York has insane government intrusion in every aspect of your life. New York State is involved in everything you do. The state is.
Yes.
In Texas,
It's
not
a
as much. I
nanny
know
state. Yeah,
It
and
is.
Texas has its problems. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I moved here in 2010 originally. My husband and I have gone back and forth. He is a filmmaker. His business is all here in Central Texas. And so we have seen the dichotomy. We also lived in Los Angeles, and I see the difference in governance. And it's what turned me into a conservative. Is like, you guys are psycho and you suck. I cannot do this, and then I'm like, well, maybe people don't know, and I'm going to educate people.
Yeah.
And I was on a mission trip in Vermont for 3 years, involved in politics.
Let me grab some comments, Ericka. Let me grab some comments, if I could. I'm going to grab some comments, if we could. All right. So Michael Voss, who's known about Soundbites Live, says, modern monetary theater is insane. Debt and value of dollar matters. And the reason why I wanted to bring this one up was really because I feel like if you ask many people on the left, they honestly believe that MMT is real. Like they think it's actually real. They believe it 100%. Like they go, we can just print more money. They think it's actually okay. They don't see any problem with it.
It's because they're not educated.
Correct.
And they've been doing it for so long, they don't see what's the problem.
They haven't suffered the consequences.
So let me just ask, before we wrap this up, I want to make sure everybody please like this if you liked it. Please do so. If you like what we're doing, please like it. It does matter. Helps get me past Mr. Algorithm. Please do that if you could. If you're watching on Twitter, please retweet this. I do care. It does matter. If you do, please take it. Thank you for the super chats today, guys. I appreciate all of them. If you want to support the show, you can. It's at patreon.com/sharpway. If you want to. Also, please follow the people here who have given us so much love tonight. You can follow Chris at Chris Knight 407. And if you're listening to this, it's Knight with a K, Knight 407. You can follow CJ, who left us, at Compton Made Me on Twitter. And also you can follow Ericka at Ericka Redic. That is Ericka with a ERICKA REDIC, if you would please. So before we wrap this up, anything that I've missed? Anything you want to talk about? Chris, you wanna tell us what you're doing? Pump something?
Yeah, so I help people. So I help entrepreneurs start and scale their business. So if you need capital, it starts with your personal credit. So if your personal credit's trash, because we're not educated on credit, because a lot of people have bad credit because they don't know how credit works. We can help you fix your credit. Once your credit is fixed, if you want to start a business, we'll help you start and scale and grow your business and get capital from the banks at 0% interest for anywhere between 6 to 18 months. Take that money, start your business, pay back the banks over time, and now you have money. You just made money using the bank's money. That's the first thing. So if you need help with that, I can help you guys out with that. I have a new book coming out called Bitcoin Dad, Fiat Dad, where I go over how I used to think as a Bitcoin, as a fiat dad, right? When I didn't know anything about money. And now that I understand about money, right? I'm a Bitcoin dad. Cute. Yep. And so BitcoinDadFiatDad.com, and it's coming out soon, so you guys can pre-order that book there. And then last but not least is I started a new business. It is called Colopop, and I sell collagen supplements. So if you guys are interested in getting some collagen, mainly for the ladies, right? But men can take it too. It's collagen. It has biotin. It helps your hair, skin, nail, all that good stuff. So I just started that.
Biotin is very good. I know it is. Biotin is.
Right.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, you guys can buy it at colorpop.com. Use promo code 25, get 25% off. Free shipping. And that is my business, and so is the credit education. So thank you for having me on, Larry.
Of course, absolutely. Ericka, go ahead.
My podcast is Generally Irritable. We're on all of the socials. You can go to generallyirritable.com. There you can find links to my channel, stuff that I'm working on. You can find links to the radio show and podcast that I co-host and produce called Of the People with Robert Chernin. We're expecting to have a bunch of the presidential candidates on. We're based out of New Hampshire, so first in the nation's primary. We're working it out with the campaign, so that's going to be really exciting. Again, generallyirritable.com. You can find a link to my book called Reasons to Trust the Government on Amazon.com.
Small book.
Let's just say read the description, okay, before you buy it.
Okay,
Definitely
like
make sure to read the description so that you know exactly what you're getting, because I am transparent, if nothing else. But yeah, that the website will get you links to our merch store and everything that we've got going on. Yeah, so I do have my accounting practice is called I Love Your Money. You can go to iloveyourmoney.net to learn more. And just as part of, trying to make the world better, if you will, my goal is to create new business owners and entrepreneurs. So rather than just hiring bookkeepers, I'm hiring folks who want to start their own business, particularly women, although I'm not a sexist. But I am gearing it towards women who want to be stay-at-home moms, who want to have a business where they can stay home and raise their kids, because restoration of the family is one of my top priorities, and
100%.
Something that I think will create, will go a long way toward correcting our problems. So I appreciate
100%.
you giving me the opportunity to pitch that. And Larry, I just love that you play devil's advocate and that you have different people on with different viewpoints, because
thank you.
More conversation is the solution, not less. Debating ideas, debating the merits is how we come up with the best possible solutions for the most possible people. And I think that it is so important in this day and age when we are so siloed and we are encouraged to see the other side as the enemy. Your show, your podcast is so important. And so thank you for having me on. I appreciate that.
Of course. Yes. Thank you so much. Let me grab one last time. Roger has thrown a bunch of super chats. Thank you, Roger, for the $5. You dropped probably $20 tonight. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. He says, out of the 4 states mentioned, Florida is the best because it allows for voters to place their own initiatives on the ballot to ratify their own amendments. And he has a very valid point. I agree completely. The only way you can get around certain things when the oligarchs take over is by having more direct democracy. Again, direct democracy is not perfect. There are problems with that too. However, it is always better than oligarchs. That's for sure. If I have a choice between direct democracy and oligarchs, I will take direct democracy when those are my two choices. And I think he's absolutely correct. New York, officially, you can put stuff on the ballot, a ballot initiative, but only if our assembly allows it. So it's not real. It's not a real thing. What Roger's saying is we should be able to just get signatures and put stuff on the ballot. And I agree. I think it'll be a better way of doing it. For example, in New York City, New York State, you'd probably get school choice if you had a ballot initiative, but you won't get it with the oligarchs because they're all owned by the school system, by the school unions. But you'd probably get school choice if you actually put it on the ballot initiative. But if you go to places like Kansas and such like that, they're all the people are actually more pro-choice than the government is. The government's less pro-choice than the people are. So you'd probably want to have an abortion law that was close to what the people want if it was on a ballot initiative. So I agree with them. I think it's completely correct. So anyway, we've yapped away, guys. Thank you so much for this evening. I appreciate it. Everybody else, thank you so much for watching. I will be back on tomorrow at 1 p.m. for my radio show out of WYSL, Rochester, New York. And then again, Wednesday night, I'll be back on at 7 p.m. I will see you all